Adrian N. Breitfelder, City Clerk, you are hereby directed to call a special session of the City Council to be held on Wednesday, March 23rd, 2022 at 6:30 p.m. in the historic Federal Building for the purpose of conducting such business that may properly come before the City Council.
Thank you. Good evening and welcome to a special session of the Dubuque City Council for March 23rd, 2022. As a reminder to our participants, you can provide in-person input or virtual audio and written input during tonight's public hearings. Input options during the live meeting include in-person attendees may approach the podium when the mayor asks if there is any public input for the public hearing they would like to speak to. Remote attendees can log into GoToMeeting using the login links, phone numbers, and access code that appear on the broadcast and live stream and posted on the front page of the meeting agenda. This option includes audio input and written chat input. If you are participating via computer, indicate which public hearing you would like to speak to in the chat function. If you are participating via phone, indicate that you would like to speak when phone lines are unmuted. All phone lines will be unmuted during each public hearing, and city staff will determine the speaking order of the participants. All comments, whether in person or virtual, must be accompanied by a name and address. Additionally, written public input is accepted by contacting the City Council directly from the city's webpage at www.cityofdubuque.org/councilcontacts and through the City Clerk's office email at ctyclerk@cityofdubuque.org. This information will be reiterated during the meeting. Attendance for the session is as follows. Mayor Kavanaugh.
Here.
Council members Farber.
Here.
Jones.
Here.
Resnick.
Here.
Roussel.
Here.
Sprank.
Here.
City Manager Van Milligan.
Here.
Thank you. Our first order of business tonight is an action item, which is Healthy Homes Production Grant Agreement.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Jones.
I move to receive and file the documents and adopt the resolution.
Second.
And a motion by Mr. Jones and a second by Mr. Resnick. Mike, please.
I have to admit, you caught me off guard because I was just thinking I was sitting there for a regular budget hearing, so I have my computer. Oh, there we go. Corey's going to rescue me.
Corey, please. Yeah, right.
City Manager Mike Van Milligan. Housing and Community Development Director Alexis Steger is recommending City Council accept the Lead and Healthy Homes Program grant awarded to the City of Dubuque and authorize the mayor to execute the agreement and the First Amendment to the agreement. I concur with the recommendation and respectfully request mayor and City Council approval.
All right, thank you, Mike. Any discussion? Any questions on this item? I just want to point out how exciting it is that, part of the memo that we received from staff here is just the grants that we've received this past year to be able to do all this work, and I think it's fantastic. I mean, this is great that we're able to do this, and I know it's part of what we heard from your budget presentation in the Housing and Community Development before, but this is absolutely wonderful, so thank you for all the work on that. All right, Adrian, would you call the roll, please?
Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Farber.
Aye.
Jones.
Aye.
Resnick.
Aye.
Roussel.
Aye.
Sprank.
Aye.
That motion passes 6-0.
We'll move on to public hearings, and public hearing number 1 is fiscal year 2023 Community Development Block Grant Annual Action Plan.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Resnick.
I move to receive and file, adopt the resolution, and listen to the presentation.
Second by Farber.
Got a motion by Mr. Resnick and a second by Ms. Farber. Mike, do you have a memo on this one too?
No, we have Alexis.
We'll go straight to Alexis.
Want me to do that first?
Sure. Go ahead.
Okay, well, actually, I was going to introduce Maddie to do CDBG, and then the memo
Okay.
will be after that. Is that okay?
That's great.
Okay, perfect. Alexis Steger, Housing and Community Development Director. Maddie Haverland, Community Specialist, will be talking to you about the CDBG budget, and then I will take questions at the end. So Maddie is here for that.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. I'm Maddie Haverland, Community Development Specialist, and I'm going to talk tonight about our fiscal year 23 annual action plan for the Community Development Block Grant, or CDBG. So by federal law, Community Block Grant CDBG activities must meet one of 3 national objectives. These include eliminating slum and blight, benefiting low and moderate income populations, or meeting an urgent need. As an entitlement community, our allocation changes a little every year because it's it's determined by a formula, and we have not yet received notification of what our allocation is going to be for fiscal year '23. So we're using the same amount that we received in fiscal year '22, which is just over $1.1 million. The Community Development Advisory Commission holds public hearings, receives input, and makes recommendations on the plans and programs that we have for our allocation for CDBG. We are a 9-member commission. We're a little slim right now. We have 3 openings right now for commissioners located in low to moderate income areas. In addition to our entitlement, we're also able to reinvest program income that is from CDBG activities into the rest of our activities for the year. Our projected program income for this year is just over $250,000. And this program income comes from things like loan payments or proceeds from selling homes that were rehabbed using CDBG funding. So this puts our total resources at over $1.3 million for the year. We split our activities into housing and community development activities and neighborhood development activities. We provide assistance through loans for first-time home buyers, homeowners looking to rehab their homes. We also have a rental rehab program this year funded at $50,000 that you won't see on this slide. CDBG also provides the highest percentage of match funding for the combined $7 million that we currently have for Lead and Healthy Homes grants. New this year also is this $80,000 for Renew Dubuque Solar Pilot Program, which helps reduce energy burden for low to moderate income households. It also fits nicely into our equitable poverty prevention plan and our climate action plan. In neighborhood development activities, we continue to provide scholarships and low-cost recreational programming in partnership with Leisure Services. We're excited to continue our partnership with the school district with the Lincoln Outdoor Wellness Project, which is going to completely redevelop their campus, basically their playground and their green space. And the 2 pictures that you see on the bottom right of the screen are from an outreach event. It was the Lincoln Carnival, and the president of the parent group there and I hosted a table for kids to draw out on this aerial map what they would like to see their playground look like. And we accompanied that with a parent survey so that we were making sure that we were including the input, not just from the kids, but also from the parents who might take their kids there so that they can work on their own health and wellness by having a walking track or things like that. So it's an exciting project. And we also last week held a meeting for our aquaponics for food deserts project. And in attendance, we had professors and students from Loras College and the University of Dubuque with amazing skill sets. We had engineering professors and environmental biochemistry. I'm not quite sure I'm butchering that, but brilliant people in the room who are committed to this project, as well as community partners from nonprofit organizations. Here we've broken some of the activities out under city council goals. As expected, the majority of the funding is under livable neighborhoods and housing, but CDBG is very expansive in its impact on these goals. CDBG does have a 20% cap towards administrative funding, so any funds that aren't spent towards that cap can directly on administration costs can now be drawn down for indirect costs if there's any room there in that cap. The city has also received about $1.5 million in CARES Act funding in previous fiscal years, not only from HUD directly as entitlement, but also through the state with the Iowa Economic Development Authority for activities to prevent, prepare for, or respond to the coronavirus pandemic. All of this funding is currently allocated, and we're about 75% drawn on our entitlement COVID funding. We were able to assist 45 families or households with short-term rent, mortgage, and utility assistance if they were all directly impacted by the coronavirus, and this helps prevent homelessness. This was during the peak of quarantine. We've also granted out over $200,000 to nonprofits for nonprofit support grants with our COVID funding. We use CDBG to rehab and for operational costs for a temporary isolation shelter, and we've assisted over 80 folks with that, and we continue to provide assistance if needed. And also, the Dubuque Food Pantry had to pivot quickly to the increased needs and demands that came with COVID, which included making deliveries and just needing more space for increased capacity with the food demands that were caused by this. And so CDBG assisted with acquisition of a larger facility that's more amenable to providing deliveries, and it's a safer place because there are parking spots available, so people aren't having to cross a very busy street with arms full of food. We also continue to work with community partners on rapid rehousing and credit repair. So with that, I will pass it back to Alexis.
Okay, and City Council received a memo earlier today in regards to one of our CDBG programs. It's called Homeowner Rehabilitation. There's been questions on can we serve manufactured homes with that program. It is possible, but as the memo states, and I'll go through some of the things that make it a little bit impossible today. So we have manufactured housing kind of all throughout the city, but mainly in what are considered mobile home parks. They are one parcel, and they can house as many as 200 to 300 the manufactured homes at one time. Because they're one parcel, we actually don't know how many are in that park at one time. So it is a little bit difficult to keep them in our permanent housing stock. So currently today, they are not listed as our permanent housing stock in the city of Dubuque, and they need to be served with CDBG funds. It is something City Council could make a decision to include them in our permanent housing stock. There are still some decisions that need to be made to be able to do that, such as what defines permanent, how do we track them, since we don't currently track how many homes are within a parcel. And there's just other things. It doesn't count if the lot is rented or if they have to own the lot and the manufactured home. So staff is working on that, but we do still have to sort out the logistics of what that looks like. Some of the other issues that we have to consider are meeting the thresholds for CDBG. Manufactured homes have a lesser value, assessed value, than a single family home. And because of that, so CDBG requires that, or says you cannot spend more than 95% of the value on the home for rehab. And the manufactured homes that need our assistance are valued around $3,000 to $5,000. So what you can actually do with the amount of funding available for the rehab is not actually going to get the home up to code as required by CDBG for rehab. So we do have to take that into consideration when we are trying to help people. What can we do and what can we not do if we were to get this into place? The other requirement is that you are serving a low to moderate income person, and it has to be for a length of time. You can't just say I serve them and move on. When we contribute to developments for low income housing, we have to actually track them throughout the years to make sure they're continuing to provide that. With some of the practices in our manufactured homes, it is easy to evict or require somebody to move, and so we'd have to have some agreements with the owners of the lot to make sure that that's viable. One of the biggest barriers we have to doing this, though, is the cross-cutting codes. The City of Dubuque adopts the International Property Maintenance Code as our housing quality standards. And we do that because our housing quality standards is a provision in Section 8. And so we use that for our housing choice voucher standards. CDBG also points to that exact same code, and so we are stuck with using that code across both CDBG and housing choice vouchers. Unfortunately, the International Property Maintenance Code does not match the mobile home or manufactured home maintenance codes as required by federal law and state code. The state actually enforces the federal code for manufactured homes, both for building and maintenance. So as a city, we do not inspect and we do not permit anything within a home that's being done with a manufactured home. The only thing that we actually do enforce or permit or inspect are the utilities that attach to that home from the exterior side. So we would have to train, if we were able to somehow reconcile these and make sure that we could get up to the manufactured home standards, we would still have to train our staff on those codes because we currently don't use them. So we are not trained on to know what that code is. We would have to do that training in conjunction with the state inspector, and they would have to actually agree that we could do that to even go into the home to start the rehab. So as you can see, there's a lot of barriers to implementing that program and trying to get that, but we are still going to work on it. One of the other barriers with codes is that the Iowa state legislation is considering passing a bill that the city would no longer be able to adopt their own building codes. So we would have to be training our staff on the state codes, which are a version before ours, and a plumbing code we've never used. So we would have to just take our staff time away from learning the manufactured homes to make sure we're learning the state codes to continue development in Dubuque. So it's just one of those processes that it could take some time to really put on the table, and we wanted to make sure City Council is aware that this wasn't something we're going to be able to propose next month and get into place. And that is all we have for CDBG. And if you have any questions, or the public, thank you.
All right, thank you. Mike, did you have anything to add, or was that what you were?
Is that pretty much?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, thank you. Then I'm going to open up for a public hearing first, and we're in a public hearing to consider adopting the fiscal year 2023 program year 2022 Community Development Block Grant, CDBG, Annual Action Plan for Inclusion in the City Budget. Is there anyone in chambers or virtually who is here to comment on this particular public hearing? Seeing nobody in chambers?
No virtual comments. And no emails received.
All right, then I'll bring it back to the table for questions or discussion, please.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, Mr. Resnick.
Thank you. So when I brought up the possibility that we could possibly use CDBG funds for manufactured home, I really didn't want to. When I got a little support up here, I didn't really mean for that you would go and spend a ton of time on this. It sounds like the preliminary is that there's a 90% chance this is not going to be a possibility. And now that we have state the state action pending, I don't know. I just hope that my suggestion in question isn't going to lead you on a goose chase that wastes staff time. So I was just bringing it to the council, Mr. Mayor, to see if we want this to continue, the valuable staff time to be used for this purpose, or what course of action we'd like to take as a council. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Resnick.
Mr.
Ms.
Mayor,
Farber?
Alexis, do you know if this is on the agenda, if you will, for state legislators? And if so, is it this year that it will be discussed in committee?
For the change in codes to
For the
state?
change in,
It did make it past the funnel for both the House and Senate. So it is that with the Ways and Means Committee, everything that we've heard is that it is going to pass and be effective July 1st of this year.
so even though our codes are much more advanced, we kind of have to go backwards to go forwards?
That would be correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sprank?
I don't see this as a waste of time. Thank you for all the time you've put into this, because it's a complex issue, because it's not, we know the manufactured homes they're not exactly a home, but they're a home, but these are still people's homes. I would really like to know, once the state has kind of made its decision, our next course of action, because we've got over 1,000 homes. These are people's lives that we're talking about. I would like to be able to try to do something to help them the best we can. But I guess going back to the question was kind of mentioned a possible dollar amount. We're talking maybe 3,000-ish per property. Is that a potential that somebody that is low income? Is that kind of what a grant could be given, an amount?
Yeah, it would be about 3, it could be 3 to 5, depending on what we do, because you can use the assessed value after rehab, so, for that 95%. So anywhere from about $3,000 to $5,000.
That would go a long way in a mobile home because you're talking about a roof, a furnace, a hot water heater, or possibly redoing it so you could put in a bathroom so people could live in it longer. So no, I would definitely like to, once the state's made its decision, then move forward. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Spank. I'm having trouble with not showing my frustration up here today. I'm kind of wishing that I still had a mask on my face, quite honestly. This is just the most frustrating issue that I think we've run up against in a really long time. It feels like every direction we turn, we run smack into a wall that is built by legislation, really. And then the legislation changes to make things even worse or harder for us. And, you know, there's a couple things about that. I mean, first of all, we have elected bodies in cities in the state of Iowa who are elected by the people who live here to be able to do the work here. And the state legislature continues to usurp that. And I would really like to see that stop, because I actually think we have a pretty good team sitting right here. And I've met a lot of different city councils that do a really good job in their own homes or in their own communities. And I think we can do the work, and we have good codes to work with. I mean, you've done a great job to be able to set all this stuff up. So the code issue is yet another one where we're losing that ability, and that's frustrating. But the issue with manufactured housing is by far the most frustrating issue. Councilmember Sprank is absolutely right, and you know, these are people's lives. Mr. Resnick, you are absolutely right to ask these questions and to continue to push this. I think we should do whatever we can. That's my personal opinion from my position. But I think what's frustrating is even this, if we do this and you do spend some time on it, it's still just it's a patch for a much larger problem. The root issue needs to be fixed, and it needs to be fixed at the state legislature's level. So I say we continue to go forward with this. That would be my vote, I guess, is to continue to move forward, but then also continue to advocate in a very strong way to try and change the laws to make sure that people who live in manufactured housing are treated fairly, or the people who own the land under the home where they live. That's what we need to continue to push for. So I would encourage us to do the same. You know, so to answer your question directly, Mr. Resnick, I would hope that we do continue to move forward and that we do more. We continue to advocate every single year during the legislative session to deal with this problem. So I don't know if do you want to go back to you for any comment on this?
Well,
or
it's up to you, Mr. Mayor. My comment, of course, was that it's really dependent on state action here very shortly. I think that after that, as Mr. Sprank mentioned, we could talk about other possibilities. But I think we do need to be practical, and we, yes, continue to advocate as you mentioned. But our staff time is so valuable. I would at least wait until we see what comes from the state legislature this year before we invest a lot of time, continue to advocate. But we have to be realistic. I mean, I think that's the best thing for our citizens in any financial condition is to, be realistic and do the best thing we can with choices we have. So that's what I am. I hope that we can soon have a better solution, or at least some helping things for our manufactured population here. But I would suggest waiting until the legislature weighs in on this and then see what the possibilities are. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I'm seeing heads shaking. It's about a month, give or take, before moving forward. So, okay. All right. Aside from this, thank you very much, Alexis. We really appreciate it. And actually very much for the memo itself and moving so quickly on this after the recent presentation you gave. So thank you. And now, as far as Maddie's presentation, which we very much enjoyed, is any comments or questions on this? I'm impressed by the investment that we make with CDBG dollars. The ability to do things that are innovative and the ability to help people in such a great way. It's the second time today I've talked about the Lincoln event, for example. I was there with my children at the Lincoln Fall Carnival to be able to do that. And the way that you collected information from folks it was a fantastic way of making sure that you get public input. So thank you for all your work on that. All right, well with that then, We have a motion to receive and file and adopt the resolution. Adrian, would you call the roll, please?
Kavanaugh,
Aye.
Farber,
Aye.
Jones.
Aye.
Resnick.
Aye.
Roussel.
Aye.
Sprank.
Aye.
That motion passes 6-0.
We'll move on to our fiscal year 2023 department budget hearings. And Mayor Kavanaugh, I'll turn it over to you.
All right, thank you very much, Adrian. So our first public hearing tonight for budget is Information Services, the Information Services Department. So I see Chris coming up here. We have 9 improvement packages requested from Information Services, and 8 of those are recommended. So when you get things switched over and ready to roll, you can take it away.
The mouse would cooperate here. Great. Good evening, Mayor and Council. It's my privilege to again present to you our budget this year. I wrote a number down on my notes here for tonight, and it's this song that keeps going through my head of 525,600 minutes, and those that are Broadway fans are smiling because they know that's Seasons of Love from Rent. I don't know if my relationship with technology is always love, but it is what we do here at our budget hearings of trying to summarize for all of you what happens in a year, which for us and for all of you has been again, like no other, but then also look to the future and every one of those collections of times. So, all right. Whoops. Our mission in information services remains as being committed to both enhancing and supporting a high-performance government. We do this through an effective application of our technology that we'll talk about this evening. Resilient and reliable infrastructure, and a word you'll hear me use a lot tonight is leveraging that reliable infrastructure that we've put in place, as well as our quality of services that we provide to all of our end users in the city. We do have some new faces that we welcomed this year. We had a retirement of a long-term employee, Jim Vosberg, in July, and we took his position and moved it into another help desk position, had an opening for help desk. So we're very happy to welcome both Jacob Hoffman and Patricia Munson to our staff. When I meet with them every month, and it seems like they've been here for a year, and they started in October, both of them did. So they've taken the number of calls that we've had in a pretty large backlog of about almost 400 calls for service that we had in our ticketing system, and whittled that down to probably in the hundreds somewhere right now, with a lot of those being installs. So our staff, our organizational chart is in front of you here with myself as manager. Joe Pregler is our senior network administrator. Joe does that, and as well as wears the hat for doing a lot of the work with the ERP system implementation, and as kind of the chief data steward on that. Alicia Turnus is another lead. We have Tony Steffen as a lead. Scott Schlichty is here this evening, so Scott, if you want to wave. Alicia and Stacy Moore. These folks do a lot of different things, but across the lead application, which is on the side of our software support, server support, as well as on any of the network kinds of things that we have done, with Stacy dedicated to being at the Dubuque Law Enforcement Center, supporting 911, supporting PD, supporting sheriff, jail, records, and all the folks there. Our 2 help desk personnel are in there as well. And we do have 2 vacant positions, which are a couple interns that we'll be hiring, hopefully from some of the folks that ideally would be juniors going in to be seniors next year that are at one of our local colleges. I'm going to show this slide now just to show a proposed change that we're going to make in terms of some of those improvement items of adding some staff. So we'll talk a little bit more about this later, but this kind of gives you a feel for some of the names that would go along with the positions that stay in place. The blue squares are new positions, as well as we're looking at taking a position that's a reporting position at the Law Enforcement Center and moving it as a technical reporting position to myself. So I think one thing the council talks a lot about is creating an equitable community of choice through a high-performance organization and community. We're data-driven, outcome-focused, and are built on 4 pillars of resiliency, sustainability, equity, and compassion. And we accomplish this through planning, partnerships, and people. And I think this particular framework is one that, as an internal department, can be kind of a challenge sometimes. But I think we've really been able to see through the lens of these 4 pillars in information technology, not just on the data-driven part, but again, looking at outcomes that are focused on leveraging a lot of the things that we're already doing, and specifically in 4 areas of digital equity, broadband partnerships, data security, and high-performance technology solutions. So I'm going to weave these together with some of our highlights from the last year, and particularly in the area of digital equity, which really demonstrates resilience and equity. When we talk about digital equity, we look at 3 pillars for that, which are availability, affordability, and accessibility. And some specific examples of some of those initiatives are through the grant that we did with NTIA, the Affordable Communications Program, as well as the resident survey that we did. So I'm going to go into a little bit more detail on that. Unfortunately, we did not get the $5.5 million grant for the NTIA. But I guess when I look at this and our team looks at this, we don't necessarily see this as a failure. We see it as a point that says we took a very data-driven approach, leveraging the capacity that we had for our existing investment in broadband, in fiber optic conduit, in fiber optic, leveraging a public-private partnership, as well as really look deeply at an area of the city that had the most need and that had anchor institutions in it. In fact, 50 anchor institutions, 12,700 residents, over 4 census tracts. And I think, although we have the disappointment that we didn't get the grant, we can look now at maps, because we've always asked about, well, where's the data? What's the data tell us? And this is just one of the many maps that we had that shows, as part of the grant process, we were challenged and asked for feedback about 5 times from submission in August until we found out that we didn't receive it in January. But that was an indicator. Thought, well, we're doing okay. But this is one that spoke to me very much, that said the existing providers were able to challenge the census blocks that we had put forward. It was very much a grant about unserved, which again, I think if anyone has, a challenge for me, I think, is when I'm dealing with the definitions now is, unserved really means anything less than 25 megabits download, 3 megabits upload, and I have one choice, or I have no choices. That should be our unserved versus there are no carriers. But in this particular map, it looks like Swiss cheese, because we had census blocks which have people living in them that were not challenged. So that said, these are unserved areas on our particular grant. So it told me and told our team, we're in the right place at the right time. I think Mayor Kavanaugh, you said this, when we presented this to council, it's a no-brainer. It checks a lot of the boxes. And so, again, we continue to work with our partner IMON. We continue to work with our other groups on this, and we continue to challenge at the state level and at the federal level to say, Dubuque has presented a very data-driven approach to this, and this is what we need. In the area of affordability, and this is actually a program that's funded by the community, part of the Community Development Block Grant programs, it was the old EBB, or Emergency Broadband Benefit, but it's now the Affordable Communications Program that offers up to $30 per month discount on wireless or wired internet plans from existing carriers and providers. And so to put that website up and maintain the help for it is some of the funding, but since we've launched this in August, we've had 341 households that have signed up that actually came to the site. We have a rate of those that visit the site that sign up, which is about 1/3, which is pretty high actually for online kinds of things. And so if you take that savings annually on each household that signed up, we're looking at, a pretty significant annual amount of money that folks have to spend on something else, whether it's food, whether it's on another bill for the household and those kinds of things. So not only is it getting people better broadband, hopefully, but it's also getting them some discounts. And accessibility was the last part of that digital equity, and we talk about here, the resident survey was really the way that we got the feedback. We had 263 residents that responded to a survey that had a whole variety of questions about their internet services. But one that sticks out to me again is we asked them in the last 18 months, have you looked for improved internet or asked for it and were told you could get it or you couldn't get it? And we had 30% of the folks said, I was told by my provider that it wasn't available. So again, a very important data point and an indicator to leverage. Our partners at Dubuque Community Schools gave out over 630 hotspots, checked out for students' use within the community. Within our project area that we've defined too, there's 4 Title I schools that are in that. So again, these are some of the action items that were identified in the Equitable Poverty Reduction Plan that said broadband does lead to better outcomes for these kinds of things. So again, why is this important? This particular graphic I think you've seen before, but I just wanted to put it up quickly. It's a FAST data, which I've got to look at my cheat sheet, Formative Assessment System for Teachers. This is really a lot out of my wheelhouse, but I think the most important thing that we see on here is both here and nationally, the youngest learners were the students who lost the most, and that follows them through. And this is a high indicator of literacy. And, I think, yes, the argument can be made, does better broadband lead to better outcomes? But I think really when we think about 2022 and what we've been through for the last 2 years in terms of remote learning, it does. And so if I take away one more barrier from the kiddos that are going to have a challenge already, this is something that I think will put us out ahead. And these are just also some other pieces: economic security, early childhood learning and childcare, healthcare. These are some of the comments that we solicited from that same grant that, talk about trying to work from home on a slow internet or latency that really makes it impossible for a Zoom caller to homeschool kids, or the fiber connection isn't available in my area. So if I wanted to work from home and be a more productive earner in the community, I couldn't. But, again, through the things that we've done, I think that we're leveraging that and moving in the right direction. And especially moving that way in broadband partnerships. I can't say enough thank you to David Lyons and Greater Dubuque Development Corporation for the partnership that they offer us with this and with working with other vendors. We also work with the engineering department and have leveraged what they've done on traffic cameras, my department in information services, and then the legal department. And from that, there have been over 50 agreements that we've done with 17 different providers and partners since 2016. This results in a leverageable network investment of well over $10 million. So I think when we see this information, it's collaboration with intent, and it's also public-private partnerships that happen with some deep planning. So it gives us economic competitiveness, whether it's work from home or it gives a sense of safety with telemedicine, or even provides that social cultural vibrancy. And I think one very strong example of this with one of our partners is particularly with IMON. I think we've known that they've announced being purchased by Goldman Sachs, but that infuses about $100 million into their company capital programs that will accelerate our fiber to the home projects over the next 3 years. And so one of the ways that they're able to do it faster in Dubuque and more efficiently is, again, leveraging that infrastructure and the public-private partnerships that we already have in place. We've completed connections across both bridges in the last year with both Alliant, Wisconsin Independent Networks, as well as Comelec continues to be a partner that's moving forward in terms of both the fiber to the home and wireless. Cybersecurity has also been a huge part of the 24/7 every single day. It's a prevention, it's an awareness. Some of the things, and I shared this in an earlier memo that I shared with all of you about some of the things that we're doing in terms of having a ransomware defender that creates a gold copy of our data so that should we ever be victim to ransomware, it's easier to recover. Some of the things that we're doing with our vendor Sophos on endpoint detection, as well as firewall, network switch replacements, which keeps our equipment up to date, regular patching, training, as well as some of the things we're doing on backup, protection for our financial and accounting systems are critical at this. And I think one of the real aha moments for me this year was the cybersecurity insurance audit that we did, where we think we're doing a pretty good job. And, we're training people, we're keeping ahead of the game. But I think what was important from what that awareness gave from ICAP was just some of the things that you sort of take for granted that says, I have an old server out there because I have an old piece of software that needs to run on that particular equipment. Well, that's target usually for something to happen. And I get asked a lot about, the latest things that are happening in the world on some of the warnings that are coming out. And, my challenge is, yes, that's important, but a bigger challenge is really at the end point and at the end user of keeping them aware so that we don't have an intrusion that's happened where somebody's just waiting to look to exploit some things that are on our system. Another highlight, again, just going application and support, we continue to leverage our Laserfish document management. The ERP system and Office 365 are huge parts of the things on a high-performance government technology solution, and I think it's become even more important as we continue to work from home and in a hybrid environment, as well as that meeting support. We're able now finally to get some catch-up happening on the replacement cycle of hardware. We still have some issues on supply chain, but it seems to be easing up some in terms of moving that forward. Some future initiatives, again, continue to leverage those public-private partnerships. Fiber to the home is coming within the next 3 years, digital equity initiatives, and the last piece of that puzzle on digital equity would be actually working with our partners at AmeriCorps in getting some equipment out to folks. We have a partner with Alliant Energy that they're starting on a small pilot that says if you need a computer, they've got some refurbished things and work with that. Continuing some of the application support that we have, and then network and cybersecurity, continuing our risk assessment and response. Talked about a zero trust security architecture, which says you get the least possible security that you need, and we build from there. As well as physical location. I've talked many times about being in the basement of an old funeral home is not the ideal space for a data center. So we are looking at some options for co-location sites in this budget, as well as for a data center to create that replication. Broadband and future fiber planning, again, it's partnerships across a lot of different silos in terms of connecting things to existing or planned fiber that we've got in conduit for all these kinds of different connectivity needs, whether it's to parks, cameras, the SCADA systems, water kinds of information to get that Internet of Things feedback. And so that is just a continuing process that we're working with ARPA funding on some of those things, as well as through budgetary things. Our net property tax support request is a little over $1.4 million, and what that means to the average homeowner is about $21.33. So moving on to some of our recommended improvement requests. The first one is something called the backup of Office 365 data using something called Veeam. That's our existing backup mechanism. Office 365 has a backup in it inherently, but it's only for a 30-day retention, so this would integrate with our existing backup cycles. Azure Premium One is an extension to our existing Azure environment with Office 365. It gives us enhanced ability to bring together the things we're doing on premise with the things that we're doing in the cloud, with the things that we're doing in Office 365, and really pulls the data and the security and the password management and all those kinds of things together in more of a cohesive place, rather than having some things on-prem, some things in the cloud in applications, and some things within the Azure environment. Email boxes for all staff. We have probably about 300 staff that don't have email boxes. This is over a variety of different reasons for this. It seems like a high number, but when you look at the number of folks that are in the field that don't regularly use email from the city, or some of our part-timers, that this is a critical way for us to communicate with those. A Wi-Fi diagnostic tool, which is a one-time expense for going into places like this and saying, I'm having trouble with my public Wi-Fi, what's going on? It would allow us to see what other networks are out there and any interference. We did have one last time. It was a password management. There's an asterisk on that, that this is a very peanut small part of what's in the Azure Premium one. So if that's approved, we don't need that $400 piece there. And staffing, I think when I did the analysis and wrote the memo to you all in early February, one of the gaps that we recognized was that due to things like enhanced enterprise applications like additional Office 365 licensing, when we looked at the upcoming ERP system, and we also looked at the needs that are continuing to happen and grow for both policy monitoring as well as practice across security. And these are the 3 of the staffing requests that we made that were recommended by the city manager. So again, this is what the proposed information services organizational chart would do with those 3 additional positions highlighted in blue. And then it really, on the public safety move, there's an employee that reports to public safety personnel. It really makes more sense for them to report to IT because that's what they do, is IT. They're funded partly by general fund and partly reimbursed by the county. So as a general fund department, it really is not an impact from a fund standpoint. It would be a departmental impact. And we're also looking at some reorganization. I think I've come to you before and said we know a little bit about a whole lot of things, and I know a little bit very, very intensely about some things, and it creates a more intentional structure across 4 different areas in IT of a network administration group, which would be that chief security officer and the senior network admins, and the IT security group as well, of putting intentional folks that this is what they do. A public safety user group, support group that would look at not only PD and the DLEC folks, but also fire, parking enforcement, EOC users, and any of those kinds of enforcement activities. And the last would be that enterprise user and application management group, which would be really the nuts and the bolts. Support for the enterprise systems, the CRM, the GIS, and any of those kinds of related enterprise software. The capital improvement projects, again, we're on a set replacement cycle for computers as well as mobile devices. 4-year replacement for computers. I believe it's a 3-year replacement on phones and a 2-year replacement on mobile devices. Network security risk assessment, we're not doing that specifically this year, but it has a long-term budget for that. Fiber optic documentation and maintenance is another piece of just putting that information in a centralized database and getting some assistance for that. Some work on an office redesign that's being merged with some other departments to find the best use of space for the kinds of work we do. Some maintenance on the ransomware and file recovery, and then some money intentionally starting in fiscal year 23 for design and move to co-location and data center location. And our performance measures, to conclude things really here, are all about maximizing uptime, making sure we train our staff and train those that are within the organization, and making sure that we ensure that the data assets are safe and that we're blocking those intrusions as well as viruses, and keeping the technology resources at their maximum availability for everyone. And I thank you, and I'd be available for any questions.
All right, thank you very much, Chris. We'll open up for public comment first, please, Adrian.
At this time, anyone participating in the meeting in person who would like to discuss this public hearing may approach the podium when the mayor asks if there is any in-person input for this public hearing. For all remote attendees, please enter your name and address in the chat function and state your question, or state your name and address over the phone when the mayor asks if there is any virtual input for this public hearing. Please begin your input by stating your name and address.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any public input for the information services budget? Anything virtually?
And no emails received.
All right, thank you. I'll bring it back to the table then.
Mr. Mayor.
Ms. Farber.
Hi, Chris. Thank you very much for that presentation. And I also want to thank you again for responding during the last 2 years during COVID. And I know you guys had to do a lot of compression and a lot of quick turnarounds and a lot of quick studies to keep everybody operational. So a big thank you again for that. In reference to the February memo and also today what you have shared with us, I just have a couple of questions for you. And one is relating to the cowbell insurance that you have listed as $1 million. Is that ample?
I would say yes, and we base that on a number of records that are potentially exposed and what that exposure would look like for remediation, which usually involves first the cleanup piece of it that we would do, and any forensics that we would hire beyond that. And then a lot of it comes with opening up a call center, letting folks know that information has potentially been compromised, those kinds of things. So when I look at that, as well as our weakest point is probably the end point, which is human beings. And so we've invested a tremendous amount of time and effort into proactively making people recognize when there is a problem. So 1 million at this point, considering we were probably one of the few of their customers, and I don't know if few is the right word, but public sector is having a really difficult time checking all the boxes that they're requiring. So we have 1 million, and then there's a supplemental amount, and I'm not recalling it, but there's a smaller amount available through ICAP as well.
I just wanted to make sure that we were covered, because I know that there's a lot of work that goes into trying to communicate and to get that piece of information out to those users. The second question I had was talking about the physical security, and I know we had talked about this last year as well. Is this a good time to kind of educate us a little bit on the two options that you're exploring? One is the co-share in a location, and then the other would be actually a redundant data center.
The first piece is moving everything from the basement of City Hall Annex to someplace else. We have looked at some facilities within the area. Probably the most viable that we're looking at that checks a lot of the boxes, again, is a hardened facility, is located far away from where we're at, would be at the old McLeod Switch facility. We don't have a contract on that, but we are actively negotiating with their folks for, I believe, 10 racks to be located within that, racks that would house our equipment. So that would forklift equipment from there, and possibly some of the equipment from the law center. We'd still, if we initially probably would leave the law center and replicate between those two locations. A data center, then, we're looking at, there are a variety of vendors that we have with our enhanced fiber optics. Our partners are the most viable options that we have to look to, because we'd be connected by high-speed internet and high-speed connection for them already. So that site would be replicated of all of the data, so it would really get it out of our hands in another city. So if something catastrophic happens on the scale of the tornadoes we saw in New Orleans, floods, any of those kinds of things, that we would be able to have that high availability, and provided we could find places for our people. But again, some of the things that we're doing in terms of where our applications are located and how we're doing business in terms of some of the things like the working with Azure and Office 365, that puts us in a much better situation to withstand some of those kinds of disasters.
Right, so my question is on the co-location in the website, or in the co-share rack, if you will. Is that a lease that is a long-term lease? Does it give us enough time to get a redundant data center established so that we're always covered? Just looking at the lease versus buy here in terms of the budget.
Right. And the model that we've put forward is really looking more in the lease environment than, unless the build would probably be more with enough partners, such as the schools or the colleges or, other private, public kinds of partnerships that we would put in a facility for that, so that we could cost share. So realistically, going it alone right now, it would be a lease situation, and that's the most cost-effective model that we've been working with. But again, David Lyons has been instrumental in working with us on that in terms of determining kind of what that looks like and what would meet our needs most.
Okay, and that'll give us time to get the data center up and running?
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you. And then one final question. You had mentioned in your document as well as today that training the end users was really key to cybersecurity and just to basically the security of our own network. Is it possible to include the city council in some of that training?
We would love to. We've done one session, I think, for council. So as part of your annual training, or at times when it makes sense, we have cybersecurity training and also have resources from KnowBe4. That's a partner that we have that does some of our phishing campaigns as well, for testing, how are we doing, as well as has some resources there for a knowledge base. So yeah, we'd be very glad to.
Yeah, I appreciate that very much. And then I just wanted to basically thank Mike and yourself for increasing the number of people in your staff, because I think that's really needed, especially when we talk about public safety and some of the cybersecurity that we just need to be aware of on a very regular basis. So thank you for all that you do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Other questions or discussion? Mr. Resnick.
Mr. Mayor, thank you very much. So many things, great things you do for our citizens. Budget meeting, so let's talk money a little bit. So we're up 33% or so. We're up about a third overall cost. We're up a third with new employees. Ms. Farber mentioned it. And our citizens are, I think, of two minds. They want lower costs and they want high-performance services. And this year we have many more police, many more fire employees, and many more information services. And all of those are very important to our citizens. And your department, of course, helps every department be better. So, and it just keeps the things that you do keeps doing more. My question to you, well, especially I like your, I think our city effort to, a rising tide helps all boats. And so we're looking at an equity lens, and I think I appreciate your viewpoint on that as well. So a rapid growth in staff. My question to you is the 12-person chart that you have there, the organization chart, is that modeled after another successful city or a company, or is this unique to Dubuque, that chart?
It's a good question. I think it's somewhat unique to us, but it also doesn't deviate too much from what we see in private sector needs. I tried when we've been working on this really since July. This wasn't something that sort of happened. And a lot of times you hear, yeah, I need more staff, I need more staff. And I think what we took an approach, and I say we because it was an entire staff effort as well as myself, of saying, okay, where do we see the gaps and where do we see the most risk? Because again, going back to what we worked with ICAP on, it is about loss, but it's also about the potential risk for that loss. So when I looked at where the city looked at most vulnerable and where we looked to have the most risk, we look at that chief security officer and said, I wear that hat quite a bit, and the senior network admin wears that hat, and some of the leads wear that hat, but that cohesive effort, when you're split many ways, creates that risk. It also creates a stress on our human part of all of this, but it creates that risk. And when I look at the risk, it really is on the data loss and the data intrusion. It's not just that somebody got in, it's somebody did something when they got in. Or a partner has someone that they're working remotely with and they got in and they laid there for a while, like they did in the situation in Florida with the water plant. That person that intruded there was there for quite a while, and they watched patterns until finally they had the opportunity to say, I've got what I need to make the changes on there. So it really is a public safety issue when you look at that. So that particular piece I looked at that said, this is a gap, but it's also a risk. And when I look at risk too, and I'm glad you mentioned the lens of equity, is those that are most likely to suffer most in a data loss risk situation are those that don't have the ability to respond. You know, for me, and if I have an issue that somebody grabs one of my credit cards, I make a phone call, I change my passwords, I'm done. For someone that's elderly and doesn't have access to that technology, to someone that maybe is got so much on their plate that their income marginalized or their children, that surmounts one more layer that we're putting on top of that person by not keeping their data safe. So again, if I felt that was a vulnerability, that position was needed. The ERP positions, we're doing something unique, which is really good on adding enterprise kinds of things. We're doing an enterprise resource piece with financials and HR and inspections and contracting, and we're moving all that data under one roof in a hosted environment. We're also adding 300 additional users of Office 365, which means 300 additional endpoints to manage from a help desk perspective, but it's also a security vulnerability that we're adding. And then I look at the environment, how it's changed over the last year, and when I look at someone that's a work from home user, they're 1 point, and I'm a at work user, and I'm another user, and then I'm hybrid, and I got 2 points of risk that I've got there. And that's gonna increase probably more than it'll decrease, as well as video conferencing, as well as looking at enhanced technology at the Multicultural Center. And then I look at the broadband pieces too, that I'm primarily responsible for. So remember, I'm wearing that security hat, and then we're looking at laying out a pretty aggressive broadband, and I'm split in several different ways. And don't get me wrong, we all are multitaskers, we're all used to being lean, but when I really look at where we're at from an IT standpoint, we are at a point of a vulnerability and a risk that this was the fit, in my opinion, that I felt that it wasn't a cookie cutter that said, here's the organizational chart for West Des Moines, that's the organizational chart for Dubuque. Is it close? Yeah, there's some similar positions. Cedar Rapids, similar positions. Private sector, similar positions. You're going to see those in private sector too. So I guess that's my approach, and I'm not sure if that answered your question, but that's how I looked at how the org chart came about and the recommendations that I made.
No, thank you for the answer. The best of both worlds and what's best for our citizens. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any others? All right, well, Chris, I even just in the answers you gave to questions that we had up here in your presentation, it's very thoughtful, it is very detailed, and I think that it's all in the right direction. So thank you very much for what you're doing and all the ways that you protect us and make sure that we are able to work in any place we need to work, because that's the way it is today. So I really appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
All right, well, thank you. We'll move on to our next budget presentation, which is the Water Department. So we'll do a quick switch over and be back in a minute here. How you doing?
We'll find out.
All right. You're doing fine. I'll just answer for you. Yeah, we're doing
Spilled
well.
water or knocked the podium over, so.
Yeah. All right, so we are ready for our next presentation here. We have the Water Department, and we have 6 requests and 6 of them recommended. So, Chris, I'll let you take it away.
All right, thank you. Good evening, and thank you, Mayor Kavanaugh, City Council, and City Manager Van Milligan. My name is Christopher Lester, City of Dubuque Water Department Manager, and I'm joined this evening by Brant Schuler, Water Distribution Supervisor, Darren Holm, Distribution Foreman, Carl Plumley, Water Meter Repair Worker, and Carrie Leppert, Engineering Assistant. We are pleased to present the Water Department's fiscal year 2023 budget. We start this presentation with the Water Department's mission statement, developed by our water department leaders. The City of Dubuque Water Department is passionate about delivering high-quality drinking water with excellent customer service while meeting our customers' changing needs with equitable and sustainable rates. Bringing our city such a valuable service is our crew and team leaders. I would first like to introduce you to our new faces and thank those who are leaving us. This year, we welcomed Marty Cass and Benjamin Pankratz to the Water Department as distribution maintenance workers. Marty came to us from Unison Solutions, where he was in charge of setting up and bringing online methane recycling gas skids. Ben came to us from Geisler Brothers, where he has experience with sheet metal fabrication. Leaving us this year is our longtime maintenance technician, Brett Stearman. Brett will be leaving us after almost 30 years of dedicated service to the water department, so big thank you to Brett. Excuse me. In FY22, there were no significant changes to the number of full-time equivalents of 26.07. We are proposing no changes to the current organizational structure in FY23. Throughout the fiscal year, we have had several employees obtain higher Iowa DNR water treatment and water distribution certifications. This shows significant commitment and dedication as preparation for these certification exams are done outside of working hours. Requirements for each level of certification include a specified amount of education and on-the-job experience. While this list does not identify those who are currently preparing for higher certification, I do believe it speaks volumes to the caliber of staff we have in the water department who are committed to being the best in the field. The City of Dubuque is a high-performance organization and community that is data-driven and outcome-focused, built on the 4 pillars of resiliency, sustainability, equity, and compassion. The city strives to create an equitable community and as such is able to offer utility bill assistance programs. The reduced utility fee program was extended in fiscal year 2021 to include residents who applied for and were approved to receive a discount of up to 50% of the minimum water charge. In fiscal year 2022, 2%, or just under 500 water utility customers, were able to take advantage of this program. Highlights of fiscal year 2022 include the Kennedy Road water main extension to Wildflower Ridge subdivision project. This included the installation of 3,800 linear feet of 12-inch diameter water main from Forest Glen Court to Daisy Trail. City engineering prepared the plans and bidding document, and the installation was completed locally by Drew Cook & Sons Excavating, Temperley Excavating, and McDermott Excavating of Dubuque. The owners of Wildflower Ridge subdivision installed 200 feet of new water main to connect to the City of Dubuque's water system, adding 38 new customers. Remaining work for this project includes 5 hydrant installations and associated asphalt patching, which is scheduled to be completed by May of 2022. The Water Department and Public Works Department collaborated on the Orchard Drive Water System Improvements Project. This project replaced 1,350 linear feet of water main that had suffered 13 water main breaks. Public Works greatly assisted with the project and completed the first lift of hot mix asphalt, or HMA, saving both time and money on the project. In addition, 680 feet of new curb and gutter were installed, with 360 feet of sidewalk and new ADA ramps. Public Works will install the final HMA overlay later this spring. The Southgate to Simpson water main connection project eliminated 2 dead-end water mains with a high history of main failure. With the help of city engineering, an easement was acquired and the two dead-end mains were connected, creating a loop in the distribution system. The work was completed by McDermott Excavating and at 6% under budget. The new US Highway 20 and Swiss Valley Interchange project, recently completed by the Iowa Department of Transportation, impacted the city's water distribution system. For the past two construction seasons, the engineering and water departments collaborated with the Iowa DOT to reroute and construct new water main along both Cottingham Road and North Cascade Road. The newly relocated water main is now fully operational and provides the city with a more resilient and sustainable water distribution system. The city's cost share of the project is approximately $753,000. Moving on to future initiatives, the Water Department and City Engineering will be working together to replace approximately 955 feet of 6-inch diameter cast iron water main located in Althauser and Eagle Streets. The mains are located adjacent to Jefferson Middle School, and the work will reduce main breaks and service outages that impact the school and surrounding neighborhood. This project will also include the replacement of lead service lines. Also coming up in fiscal year 2023, bids will be sought to add a remote standby generator at the Park Hill Pump Station, similar to the generator installed and shown here in the left corner of the screen at the West Third Reservoir. The ability of the utility to perform during electrical power outages remains a priority. Routine operation of the generator along with routine maintenance is performed to ensure they are ready when needed. The city recently purchased approximately 156 acres of ground near the Southwest Arterial and Sipel Road interchange, north of Tamarack Park. The purchase was made to expand the Dubuque Industrial Center West and provide pad-ready sites at the newly named Crossroad Industrial Park, formerly the Weber property. In support of this economic growth and development, water main is scheduled to be extended throughout the site in phases. Phase 1 includes 4,555 feet of 16-inch diameter water main, and Phase 2 includes 450 feet of 12-inch diameter water main. The project design will be coordinated with economic development and city engineering, with Origin Design of Dubuque as the engineer on record. The water main portion of the project cost, including engineering services, is estimated to be $970,245. The city is exploring the possibility of state revolving funds for this and several other projects as a result of the recently passed bipartisan infrastructure law, or as I'll refer to it going forward as BIL. The project is scheduled to be completed by the end of 2023. The Water Department is also looking to address necessary improvements associated with its water distribution and storage system. These improvements will address water resiliency through water main looping, water quality with the reduction of bottlenecks and dead ends, and improve water storage and pumping at key locations throughout the community, as seen in the slide. These improvements are geared towards supporting the city's existing customer base and its economic growth and development. In anticipation of the release of funds to states from the passing of the previously mentioned BIL, which was signed on November 15th of 2021, the Water Department is currently working with Origin Design of Dubuque on construction plans and specifications for a citywide distribution system and storage improvements project. This work will increase the city's ability to respond quickly once the BIL dollars are released. Those water infrastructure dollars will flow through the Drinking Water State Revolving Funds, or SRF, which carries an additional subsidy that 49% of funds provided through SRF must be provided as grants and forgivable loans to disadvantaged communities. Should SRF projects be eligible for 49% debt forgiveness, it would allow the city to move projects such as this ahead several years. As SRF dollars are sought, it is critical the city be ready with design and construction plans in preparation for the submittal of an intended use plan, which is the first step in applying for SRF funds. The estimated cost for this project in 2022 dollars is $15.9 million. Therefore, construction will be bid to coordinate with financing availability and requirements. Continuing with the theme of looking ahead, the Water Department is keeping abreast of upcoming changes to the lead and copper rule. On December 16th, 2021, the Environmental Protection Agency, or EPA, announced the next steps to strengthen the regulatory framework on lead in drinking water. Upon review of the lead and copper rule, the EPA identified that there are significant opportunities to improve the rule to support the overarching goal of proactively removing lead service lines and more equitably protecting public health. According to the EPA, the rule revisions are still in the process of being finalized. However, the DNR is requiring lead service line inventories to be completed and available to the public no later than October 16th, 2024, which is the same timeline the EPA anticipates finalizing the forthcoming lead and copper rule improvements. Funding for the lead and copper rule improvements, including the lead service line replacement, is being made available through the BIL. The EPA announced that it will allocate $2.9 billion in bipartisan infrastructure law funding to states, tribes, and territories to remove lead service lines. The 2022 allocation is the first of 5 allotments that will provide $15 billion in dedicated funding for lead service line replacements nationwide. The Water Department has identified approximately 5,800 lead service lines, both full and partial, at a replacement cost of approximately $30 million. It is important to note, however, until all lead service lines are replaced, the water treatment process in use at the Eagle Point Water Treatment Plant includes the application of an orthophosphate used to coat the interior of lead piping, which the lead pipe is on the slide. This coating reduces the potential exposure of the city's drinking water to lead, and due to the successful application of this coating, the city has had no violations since its use. The SCADA and fiber optic communications project includes the replacement of existing supervisory control and data acquisition hardware and software in place of the current radio communication to the Water Department's pump stations, tanks, and towers. The existing SCADA and radio communication programming and operating system, RS Logix 500, is outdated and the hardware is no longer supported by the manufacturer vendor and will need to be replaced for continued remote operations and at the water treatment plant. The existing hardware has reached its capacity for installing new infrastructure controls. Additional funds are being requested for this project in fiscal year 2023. The extension of fiber optic communications will be coordinated with city engineering. Fiber optic installation. The citywide fiber project will encompass the installation of fiber optic communications in place of the current radio communication to the Water Department's pump stations, tanks, and towers. Finally, for future initiatives, we have the water meter product replacement program. The Water Department implemented a proactive 5-year meter interface and register replacement program starting in fiscal year 2022, replacing approximately 5,000 units per year. The department is requesting funding in fiscal year 2023 to continue this program. The work is being conducted with Water Department staff, and products are provided by the meter distributor, Ferguson Waterworks, and the meter manufacturer, Neptune. The city was able to negotiate a pricing strategy that is contingent on a structured, approved meter product replacement plan. This assists not only the city of Dubuque for budgeting purposes, but also ensures that Ferguson Waterworks and Neptune are committed to the change-out duration of the program at the agreed-to prices. Okay, moving to the proposed rate increase for FY 2023, we are proposing a 5% rate increase. over fiscal year '22, which would break down into a $1.56 increase in monthly bill for the average household. And that's based on the average of 6,000 gallons per month for City of Dubuque residents. The proposed 5% rate increase would bring the average household water bill to $33.18 for that 6,000 gallons. At that rate increase, Dubuque would continue to have the second lowest rates among lime softened facilities in this area. The highest water rate being West Des Moines, which would be 26% higher than Dubuque's rate, and the average rate being 7% higher than Dubuque's. The Water Department's organization is comprised of 3 divisions, which are administration, operations and treatment, and distribution. Water administration oversees and is directly involved in employee training and development, which includes professional development, onboarding of new employees, continuing education programs. Regulatory compliance, including reporting, monitoring, and working with Iowa DNR and EPA in compliance. And capital improvement planning, which involves project development, including budgeting, initiation, and award through construction completion. The second division is plant operations, where our certified operators and maintenance staff ensure regulatory compliance, the daily production and treatment of our water supply, maintenance of our wells and well fields, pumping to the distribution system, operation and maintenance of our water storage facilities, and the supervisory control and data acquisition system by which our system communicates to our operators. So looking a little bit closely at plant operations, the current production capacity at the Eagle Point Water Treatment Facility is somewhere between 11 and 13 million gallons per day. The current well capacity between our 5 shallow wells and 4 deep wells is approximately 16 million gallons per day. Our peak daily demand to date, has been 10.7 million gallons in November of 2016, and we continue to average approximately 7 million gallons per day output at the plant. The Water Department is currently working with Strand Associates out of Madison, Wisconsin, on a water treatment plant condition and process assessment. This assessment takes a close look at the condition of the plant as well as the processes involved during treatment. It will also look closely at the current plant capacity and identifying what improvements will be needed to accommodate future growth within the city and the water demands that would be associated with that growth. So examining both the treated and metered water, we can determine if there is non-revenue water or water losses in the distribution system. Looking at the graph on the left, we can see that in FY21, we treated just under 2.3 billion gallons of water, but only measured or metered just under 1.9 billion gallons. Metered water is authorized consumption, which is the sum of billed authorized consumption and unbilled authorized consumption, and is a known quantity based on our metering devices. When we look at the difference between those values, it is 359,000 gallons or 18.76%, which is non-revenue water. Non-revenue water is water that is not billed and no payment is received. A typical example of such usage is a fire hydrant used for flushing or street cleaning, a water main break, or leaks in the service lines of customers or the distribution system. These are real losses. It also includes apparent losses, also referred to as commercial losses, and consists of unauthorized consumption, customer metering inaccuracies, and systematic data handling errors in the meter reading and billing process. It is important to measure this value as it helps better understand the performance of the distribution system, meter performance, and where valuable capital dollars should be spent. The American Water Works Association has migrated away from using a benchmark which has varied over the years between 16 and 20% and is moving toward utilities performing water audits to establish what percentage of water loss is appropriate and allowable for each individual system. The management and minimization of non-revenue water loss is based on 4 principles: active leakage control, pressure management, infrastructure management, and speed of repair. We will continue to examine the data and determine if a water audit is the right path and method for analyzing this important metric. The final division of the water department is water distribution. The city operates and maintains over 387 miles of water main, ranging in diameter from 4-inch up to 30-inch, over 10,000 control valves, over 3,000 fire hydrants, and over 24,000 curb box valves with a 6-person distribution crew and 1 foreman. Maintenance and operation has more recently expanded to include water mains to the airport, Twin Ridge subdivision at Key West, the Vernon Water System at North Cascade Road and Highway 20, Wildflower subdivision at Kennedy Road, and the Barrington Lakes Water System, adding over 93,000 lineal feet to the system. The water distribution crew also conducts inspections, pressure testing, and bacterial testing on new development water main installation, assisting the contractor where necessary to ensure the safety of the water supply during construction. In addition, our distribution crew conducts new service main taps, curb box and valve replacements, and as time and conditions permit, install new water main in addition to flushing of water mains and exercising of public water mains valves. The distribution crew also includes a 4-person crew performing meter management for over 24,000 meters, registers, MIUs, installed in homes and businesses along with the city's backflow prevention program. We're getting there. Some statistics to date to report on. Current to date for FY22, the water distribution crew has responded to 83 water main breaks. Main breaks, can result from conditions such as freezing and thawing conditions of the ground, water hammer, corrosion, or aging. To date, FY22 have completed 128 service taps. New connections are also known as service taps, and those funds are used directly for the installation of new services, which are again installed by the city's water department distribution crews. New connections result from community growth, such as new housing, businesses, and industry, so that's a great thing. As stated earlier, part of the distribution crew includes a 4-member water meter operation and maintenance crew. This crew provides dependable meter management consisting of testing, dismantling, cleaning, repairing, and reassembling meters as required. They also perform installation services, address pressure complaints, investigate illegal use of water, install outside registers, and perform special reading of meters upon request. To date, in FY22, that crew has responded to just under 4,800 service calls. The backflow prevention program requires the installation of backflow prevention devices, minimizing the possibility of contamination of the distribution system by preventing back siphonage. A backflow prevention device stops contamination of the water system from industrial and commercial water services by using equipment that stops the backflow of water through a pipe or cross connection between potable water and contaminants. This program is also administered internally and is forecasted to generate just over $76,000 on approximately 3,000 devices within the city of Dubuque. Okay, moving on to the recommended improvement requests. We do have 6. It includes a new GPS unit for water distribution staff. This will allow them to, in real time, update installation of new water main valves in the field and put that right into our GIS system. A FlexiPro video camera, which will allow us to visualize the inside of water mains and kind of help determine how those water mains are wearing and holding up, depending on soil conditions and use. 4 file cabinets with tabletop at the MSC building. A maintenance vehicle at the Eagle Point Water Treatment Plant. A SureCall cellular distributed antenna system at the MSC to help increase cellular service in the back so they can do more reports at the office, and cartograph services. FY23 includes a total of 29 capital improvement projects, 7 of which are equipment purchases for a total of $4.5 million in CIPs. And I'll just kind of scroll through these. They're on 3 pages. Okay, finally, performance measures. The goal that you will see the greatest improvement on over the next few years is the technical meter service issue. That's under goals that need work. And then that'll be addressed with the proactive 5-year meter interface unit upgrade that was discussed earlier. And as far as goals that are on track, we just want to highlight that we continue to remain on track with 0 regulatory compliance violations. We're very proud of that. And the slide we've all been waiting for. On behalf of the staff of the Water Department, I'd like to thank you for your time this evening, and we'll turn it over to you for any questions.
I actually thought that was a great presentation. It was very
great. Well, I
interesting.
appreciate that.
Thank you very much. We'll open up for public comment first, please.
At this time, anyone participating in the meeting in person who would like to discuss this public hearing may approach the podium when the mayor asks if there is any in-person input for this public hearing. For all remote attendees, please enter your name and address in the chat function and state your question, or state your name and address over the phone when the mayor asks if there is any virtual input for this public hearing. Please begin your input by stating your name and address.
All right, thank you, Adrian. Do we have any public input for the Water Department presentation? Anybody virtually? Okay,
And no emails received.
all right, back to the table then.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr. Resnick.
quick question for Mr. Van Milligan, actually. If we could talk about the capital improvement budget and the recommendations that you give. I understood it years ago, and just tell me if it's still the same. We have many, many capital improvement projects that are not, you have to weigh them. And if we didn't use the money in the water department for those 3 pages of capital improvement, they would be used elsewhere. So it would be, you generally have a certain amount of money that you feel that is the right amount to spend on capital improvement, and then you carefully go over each one? Or could you tell me your process on how you choose which capital improvement projects to recommend?
Yes, thank you. City Manager Mike Van Milligan. Well, we have a committee that reviews our capital improvement projects requests. But as you can imagine, in a massive water distribution system like we have, there's tremendous need. And all the needs are expensive because there's a lot of excavation. Lots of times there's excavation that involves streets, so you got to replace those once you dig those up. And then at the same time, our community has the need to expand in different ways. So as Chris pointed out about us purchasing the new industrial park land, so we've got to get our utilities to those industrial park properties to serve them. Fortunately, we were able over the last several years to get the Iowa Department of Transportation to invest $150 million and build the Southwest Arterial. So now it's our responsibility to make sure there's utilities as part of the Southwest Arterial. And so, as Chris pointed out, the water line that we would run along there. And when you deal with a community like Dubuque with all our hills and different grade changes and our bluffs, a water system becomes really complicated. It's not as simple as you build a water tower that creates some pressure and it just pushes it throughout your system. So we have, 7 distribution? 10. We're up to 10 now. So we have 10 distribution areas, and they all involve pumps and towers, and part of our process is to interconnect those systems, and then they can back each other up, and then actually over time we can reduce them, right? So we'll go down from 10 right? I don't, he was hesitant in his shaking of his head, so. But it, you know, we're not Ames, we're not Iowa City where we're flat as a pancake. You build a big water tower that pressurizes the system and you're done. But yeah, we'll always have a lot of demands on our water system. And, you know, you'll remember when we did the historic millwork district, and that was all these huge abandoned buildings that now are turning into these beautiful places to live and work. And if I recall correctly, when we, well, first of all, the banks told us, we're not loaning anybody any money to work on any of these buildings till you make sure the infrastructure is all upgraded. And I'm pretty sure that one of the water lines was still wooden. Because you gotta remember, we're one of the oldest, no, we are the oldest city in the state of Iowa. So we've had a water distribution system for a very, very long time. So, you know, we're thrilled that there's now a federal infrastructure bill, and we really hope that some of that assistance will come our way. The rules are just coming out, so we'll see will the rules benefit us or not. We don't really know yet.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Ms. Russell?
I'd just like to say that I have always felt that Dubuque has the best water ever. If you travel, you always wish you were home drinking Dubuque water. And I think it's great that so many of you are here tonight to witness the presentation and be here for support, so thanks.
Yeah, we have phenomenal staff, and I'm very fortunate.
All right. You covered a lot of detail in it. I think you covered it all because we don't have too many questions for you, which is good. I do want to echo. Oh, did you? Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
I do want to add one thing that I forgot, but I think it's really important. So when the fire department was here, and they were talking about being a Class 2 fire department on a scale of 1 to 10, and there's very few Class 2 departments across country. And actually, we may end up achieving Class 1 sometime in the next few years, and that is a super elite group. But it's not all the fire department that's graded by the Insurance Service Organization, or ISO. Part of the analysis is our water system, because of course you can't fight a fire without the proper access to water and proper pressures. And so our water system always scores very well in that analysis.
Yeah, thanks for adding that. So I think one of the reasons that we don't have a whole lot of questions for you, I'm just guessing here, but is the fact that we get it. I mean, we see the growth that you have encountered, you know, all the different things that you need to do, expanding the system, keeping it as high quality as you need to. We understand the need for investment in this, and we see that it's preparing us for what we can have in the future. I mean, we're expanding our water system into places where people aren't yet, but they will be. And that's very important for us to be able to do that. And I do have to say, I mean, I totally agree with Mr. Sell. I've been in several other places in this past week, and nothing near what we've got here as far as water goes. You just want to be home every single time. So thank you for all the work that you do. I think water is also one of those things that we just take for granted, and you do until you don't have it. And the fact that you keep it safe, that you keep it coming all the time, and with high quality service is incredibly important. So thank you for all you do.
Yeah, well, we appreciate that, and to have a city council and city manager that recognizes the need to invest in the infrastructure is huge, and we're very, very grateful. So.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Yeah,
thanks for all the work, and good luck with the next year.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
All right, we are on to our next hearing then. This is going to be Water and Resource Recovery Center. So Willie, I'll let you get set up, and we'll get going here in a few minutes. You look ready to go. All right, perfect. So we have water and resource recovery. We have 2 improvement requests here, and both which are recommended. So, Willie, let's take it away for us.
Yes, good evening, Mayor Kavanaugh and City Council. I'm Willie O'Brien, Plant Manager of the city's Water and Resource Recovery Center. Tonight, I am joined by Cheryl Pregler, our confidential account clerk, and Wayne Paulsine, our maintenance supervisor. Wayne has told me today that in June, he'll be with the city for 43 years. So I want to congratulate him on that. I'll now be presenting the Water and Resource Recovery Center's fiscal year 2023 budget. Our mission at the Water and Resource Recovery Center is to operate and maintain the Water and Resource Recovery Center in partnership with our employees as we safeguard public health, water quality, and we meet or exceed all state and federal environmental regulations, recover valuable water, energy, and nutrients, all in a cost-effective manner while delivering a great customer experience. I'd like to congratulate Daryl Wickery, who retired this past February after 13 years of service with us as a plant operator. Daryl came to us from Geldwin. He spent, I believe it was several decades with them before coming on with the city. Our department is staffed by 15 full-time equivalents, falling under 3 activity areas. As the department manager, I fall under the administration activity. Under the operations and maintenance activity, we have a maintenance supervisor, who I just introduced, 2 equipment mechanics, an industrial electronics technician, an operations supervisor position, which is currently vacant. We're working on filling that position shortly here. We have 4 plant operators, confidential account clerk, Cheryl, who is with us tonight. And then finally, under the environmental monitoring activity, we have a laboratory supervisor, a new lab supervisor who will be starting with us on April 4th. We have 2 lab technicians and an environmental coordinator. I'd like to highlight a few projects from the current fiscal year. Earlier this year, we issued a request for qualifications for our high-strength waste receiving and storage project. We selected a consultant and will be kicking off the project within the next few weeks. This project will allow us to better handle high-strength organic waste from local industries that is hauled to our facility for treatment. This past December, we submitted a draft version of our updated nutrient reduction study. This is a requirement of our discharge permit to the Department of Natural Resources. We'll be submitting the final version by the end of this coming June. We are nearing completion of a major overhaul of our ultraviolet system used to disinfect plant effluent. The project includes replacement of major electronic components, UV light bulbs, and cooling equipment. Some of our future initiatives include nutrient trading. We'll continue our efforts in nutrient trading, which I'll talk about further in a moment. Following the planning and design phase of the high-strength waste project, we will be implementing the solution that best fits facility and community goals. As part of the city's renewable energy work group, we will continue to explore opportunities for further development and use of renewable energy. And we will be focusing on odor reduction. With the renovation of the Water and Resource Recovery Center, odors were significantly reduced. As our community grows and changes over time, so too does the makeup of wastewater entering our facility. We have recently been contacted more frequently regarding odors emanating from our facility. To address these concerns, we will be sampling waste streams to identify compounds that may break down during treatment processes. During treatment to odor-causing compounds. We will also be collecting air samples from within and around the facility to identify what the odors are specifically and which parts of the process they emanate from. Finally, as part of the high-strength waste project, we will identify and plan for any capital improvements needed to minimize odors. We are proposing a 9% increase to the sanitary sewer rate. The impact for the average household would be roughly $3.90 per month. This slide I was going to turn to Jenny Larson. She was unable to make it tonight.
So Willie, I'll bail you out a little bit on this. So there's some technicality to this response. So why the 9% rate increase and also why the 5% rate increase in water? And so Jennifer had prepared an answer she was going to give tonight, but she couldn't be here. So I want to read it to you because I said there's some technical elements to it. As Jennifer says, the 5% rate increase for water and the 9% rate increase for sanitary sewer in fiscal year 2023 are required to support the operating and capital needs of both the water utility and the sanitary sewer utility, which includes the Water and Resource Recovery Center and the sanitary sewer conveyance system to get the waste to the Water and Resource Recovery Center. There are many projects and programs spelled out in the operating budget and the capital improvement budget. The 5-year debt plan for sanitary sewer includes the issuance of $44.3 million in state revolving fund loans, and the 5-year debt plan for water includes the issuance of $22.9 million in state revolving fund loans. The state revolving fund loans have a requirement that the city maintains a 1.1 debt service coverage ratio that ensures the debt will be repaid. The water fund has outstanding revenue debt issued on the open market that is a requirement of 1.25 debt service coverage on all revenue debt. The debt service coverage is calculated on an accrual basis, and net income in the sanitary sewer fund must exceed the annual debt service by 1.1 times, and net income in the water fund must exceed the annual debt service by 1.25 times. In addition, it is the city's policy that both the sanitary sewer fund and the water fund maintain a 20% cash reserve. The recommended water and sanitary sewer rate increases are important to allow for future state revolving fund loan borrowings, provide for much-needed equipment replacements, and keep the systems operating efficiently. Thanks, Willie.
Here we're showing a comparison of our proposed rates with other large cities in Iowa, and this is based on an average use of 6,000 gallons of water per month. One of the main ways we are helping create an equitable community of choice is through our utility fee reduction program. The program allows for a reduction of base fees for income qualifying residents and covers base water, wastewater, stormwater, and refuse fees. For more information on this program, please contact the Utility Billing Department at 589-4144. Our core service is treatment of wastewater arriving through our collection system. We also serve as an environmentally responsible collection and treatment point for a variety of hauled wastes. We operate a state-certified environmental laboratory, and we also administer industrial pretreatment and fats, oils, and grease programs to ensure compliance with local, state, and federal environmental regulations. Excuse me. On an average day, we treat about 6.5 million gallons of wastewater using physical, chemical, and biological processes to reduce the pollutant load by over 95%. Here we show our design capacity for treatment. So these are engineering design figures. We're rated to treat just over 9 million gallons per day, and that's dry weather flow, so that would not include any storm water inflow or infiltration that we typically see in wet weather events. So right now, we're at about 6.5 million gallons per day, or 60% of that rated flow. We are rated to treat just about 37,000 pounds of biochemical oxygen demand per day. That is a measure of how much oxygen is consumed by bacteria in the breakdown of organic waste. So we are removing it at the facility so it doesn't get essentially sucked out of the river when that waste would be discharged out there. So we're currently at a daily load of about 22,000 pounds per day, which is about 50% of our rated capacity. And then total suspended solids is a measure of solid materials that are readily settleable. So we can remove those in a process called primary clarification, where we give the wastewater time for those solids to settle out, separate, and remove them. So we're rated to treat just over 29,000 pounds per day. We're currently at about 23,000 pounds per day, or 77%. The important thing here to remember is that we are, our permit, we're regulated on removal efficiency. We have to remove 85% of the conventional pollutants, that's biochemical oxygen demand and total suspended solids. And as long as we're able to meet that 85% and the discharge limits, which is a concentration-based limit, we'll be within compliance for our permit. So although these are engineering values, the big thing is that we're meeting our limits. At the center, we're not just focused on wastewater treatment. During the process, we recover resources that help us reduce our environmental impact. We use treated effluent around our facility for several process needs. We create nutrient-dense biosolids, which are used as an agricultural soil amendment, and we harvest renewable biogas, which is further processed and then injected into the natural gas pipeline as renewable natural gas. We maintain a state-certified environmental lab that serves the needs of our department and several others, including the Water Department, Public Works, Engineering, and Health Department. We're also open to the general public, which creates a revenue stream that helps support this activity. I'd like to mention a couple of compliance items. As a reminder, the city is under a U.S. EPA consent decree with the goal of eliminating sanitary sewer overflows. You'll be hearing more regarding the consent decree tomorrow night during the Engineering Department budget hearing. Excuse me. One of the requirements listed in our facility's discharge permit is to submit a report that evaluates the feasibility of reducing the incoming nitrogen and phosphorus loads by 66 and 75%. The first study was submitted in 2015. A draft of the addended study was submitted this past December, with the final report due to the Iowa Department of Natural Resources this June. In this study, we're looking at brick and mortar facility improvements along with nutrient reductions achievable with water quality improvement projects. For almost 10 years, we have been working with partners to establish a process to receive regulatory credit for watershed improvement projects. This process will allow the city to partially meet nutrient reduction requirements in the city's discharge permit by working with partners in the watershed. So we have been working through the Catfish Creek Watershed Management Authority on various water quality improvement projects. The city was able to use some SRF-sponsored project funding that we're able to route through the Catfish Creek Watershed Management Authority and dedicate to projects like the stream bank restoration out near the landfill. We worked with the Iowa League of Cities and Iowa Department of Natural Resources, Kaiser Associates, and the City of Storm Lake that received a USDA Conservation Innovation Grant to develop a nutrient reduction exchange for the state of Iowa. We also established a 28E agreement with the county and the Dubuque Soil and Water Conservation District to collaborate on water quality improvement projects. And I think it was around 2018, we started working with the Sand County Foundation of Madison, Wisconsin, and the Iowa DNR to develop a memorandum of understanding that would provide us regulatory certainty that if we're going to go and implement projects out in the watershed, that we would be able to receive credits for nutrient reductions achieved and apply those toward our meeting the goals in our permit. We have two improvement requests. The first improvement request would replace our current 1-ton work truck with a 1.5-ton work truck. This vehicle is equipped with a crane, welder, air compressor, and many other power and hand tools used daily in the maintenance of process equipment. In the past couple of years, our department has taken on additional maintenance duties, including removal and installation of large pumps. Due to the size of our current truck and crane, some locations require what we call a double pick. So that is lifting the pump partway, supporting it, and then lifting it again. The upsized equipment would allow us to remove or install a pump in one pick, saving time and improving safety. The second improvement request would replace our current side-by-side utility vehicle, which is used daily around our facility, with a similar unit with fully enclosed cab. This improvement would allow safe year-round use of the vehicle for operation and maintenance needs at our facility. Our discharge permit requires us to remove, I think I mentioned this before, 85% of the conventional pollutant load to our facility. Conventional pollutants are those that can be readily removed through settling or microbial action. Two ways we measure removal performance is through monitoring total suspended solids and biochemical oxygen demand. So this bar chart here displays our performance from the calendar year 2021. I'd like to thank you all, and I'd be happy to take any questions that you have.
All right, thank you very much, Willie. We'll open up for public comment first, please.
At this time, anyone participating in the meeting in person who would like to discuss this public hearing may approach the podium when the mayor asks if there is any in-person input for this public hearing. For all remote attendees, please enter your name and address in the chat function and state your question, or state your name and address over the phone when the mayor asks if there is any virtual input for this public hearing. Please begin your input by stating your name and address.
Yes, my name is James Clower. I live at 2020 South Grandview in Dubuque, Iowa. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members, for having me here tonight. I appreciate the opportunity to speak about the odor mitigation at the sewage treatment plant. And again, my name is Jim Clower. I'm the person who authored the letter that Councilmember Susan Farber presented to you concerning the odors coming from the wastewater treatment center. Tonight, I would like to tell you what my experience has been with the sewage plant odor. My wife Nancy and I have lived at the end of Grandview since 1978. Prior to that, we lived at 897 Mount Carmel Road for 5 years. We have put up with the odor for most of those 50 years. Sometimes it was unobtrusive, sometimes it was severe. For a number of years since the facility was upgraded in 2013, it was almost non-existent, but not lately. In particular, in the last 2 to 3 years, it has become more frequent and almost unbearable. I imagine that some of you have never experienced it. Certainly not to the degree that the residents of the Dubuque South Side have. However, if you have ever taken a walk or driven your car on a summer day on South Grandview, you may have smelled an odor that you couldn't identify and didn't know what it was, but it was not pleasant. Or if you have ever sat in the stands of the softball complex at the end of the Julian Dubuque Drive and watched your daughter or granddaughter play softball, chances are you have experienced the full wrath of the stench. That's ground zero down there. And if you are a member of the BVM congregation or a resident of South Grandview, Mount Carmel, Shady Oaks, Julian Dubuque Drive, Rockdale Road, or Prince Philip, like the people who have signed the petition that I handed in, then you probably have experienced it many, many times. My personal observation is that at its worst, it is like a fog that creeps up the valleys from the Catfish Creek corridor and surrounds you with an intense stench. It might last a few minutes, or it may last for hours, depending, I guess, on the wind direction and the velocity of the wind. It may be just annoying, or it may force you to retreat into your house. If the occurrence of the odor was predictable, I would gladly call you to come to my neighborhood and experience it yourself. If you did, I think you might agree that my observations were probably correct, and I believe that the neighbors who have signed the petition would also agree. And thank you very much for listening. And I have to say one thing, that I have talked to this gentleman on his cell phone. I got his number and called him a few times at night, and he has been just most transparent and more professional than I ever expected. And we had a couple nice discussions. So what I'm seeing here, what you've got planned, is great to hear. And I'm just getting the point across that there is an odor problem also, because it wasn't mentioned in the Telegraph Herald article once that I'd shared and held up. I looked, finally going to do something. And then I read it twice and 3 times, says, wait a minute. There's nothing about the odor. So that's why I'm up here, and that's why I got my neighbors to get together and sign the petition. I want to thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Clower. We appreciate your comments.
You bet.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, Council, my name is Brad Plummer. I live at 1041 Shady Oaks Drive.
Mr. Clower reached out to me after the newspaper article and asked if I might enlist, or if he might enlist my help in getting some more signatures on this petition. 13 years ago, my wife and I were fortunate to be able to purchase a home in Shady Oaks. And when we first moved in, occasionally, I would, in the summertime, if it was humid and the wind was right, the stench that Mr. Clower spoke of overcame us and was actually quite disappointing. So much so that in 2015, I actually began recording on my own personal email system the number of days that it chased me from my yard doing yard work, or the number of times we had to have guests retreat into our house from our deck. It was mostly in the summertime, and usually the smell would come and go, fairly randomly. It rarely lasted, for terribly long times. What I can tell you is that in the last 2 years, as Mr. Clower referred to, the stench has become far more frequent, not at all isolated to the humid, stagnant days of the summertime. It's year-round, even in the coldest of days in the wintertime. In the fall and the spring, when you like to have the windows open, we can't, because it's unpredictable. It will wake you up at night if it comes into your house. I've battled with the thought of whether or not I want to make this a public issue because, of course, we're concerned with property values, right? Yet our property taxes increase every single year, every single year. Our water rates are going up, our sewer rates are going up. They all go up at a higher rate than pay goes up. They go up at higher rates than what the employees that I pay earn every year. So I'm here to represent not only myself as a concerned citizen, and actually a fairly upset and angry taxpayer, frankly. I'll be perfectly transparent with you. I'm mad about this. I've been mad about it for years, haven't known what to do about it because I didn't want to expose it. However, I've kind of come to learn that it's not a secret. All the realtors in town know about it. They refer to our street as Stinky Oaks instead of Shady Oaks. Yet it's still a very desirable location to live. It's very convenient. It's a wonderful place. But it's really quite unfair, particularly given the property taxes that we pay where we are, to have an unlivable situation in that neighborhood. Secondly, I'm representing the neighborhoods that I live around us in Shady Oaks. I canvassed the neighborhood a few weekends ago to collect signatures. Every single person that I knocked on their door that actually was home that day and answered, A, thanked me for bringing it up and collecting the signatures, and B, every single one of them offered, if we needed anything more to do, they were happy to help. Third, I'd like to say that I'm responsible for about 150 employees that work for me. We've got a lot of young people, and we like to use the Mines of Spain quite frequently. We like to use that for trail runs, social outings, gatherings and whatnot, try to keep people fit. And there are many times that if the smell is not coming towards us in Shady Oaks, it's going the other way to the Mines of Spain. And there are many times where I'm trying to be down there exercising, getting fresh air and whatnot, and it is absolutely rancid. So I'm glad that Willie has got it on his agenda to do something about this, but I would assert to you that in all the money that I've heard doled out here today and approved in these budgets, you need to devote a hell of a lot more money to fixing this problem. Several of us in the Shady Oaks neighborhood own vacant lots that we own together or individually. We recently received a letter from the city saying that we've reached a certain point of development where now we're required to build sidewalks on these empty lots. I totally rebuke that. That's a requirement. I'm not going to spend any more money improving property in Shady Oaks until this problem is fixed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Plummer. Do you have any other public comment in person? Anybody virtually?
No virtual comments.
Okay.
And Mr. Mayor, I would just like to acknowledge some public input that was received. As Mr. Clower mentioned, he did submit written input in a petition, as well as the Dubuque Girls Independent Softball League at 905 Julian Dubuque Drive, and both of those sets of input have been uploaded to this agenda item.
All right. Thank you, Adrian. All right. I'll bring it back to the table then for discussion, please.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Ms. Farber.
So first and foremost, I really want to extend a thank you to Mr. Clower, Mr. Plummer, and Mr. Flynn for being here tonight to share their concerns. I think both were extremely articulate, and it is not new, I'm sure, to Willie of these concerns. And I was appreciative, Willie, in your presentation that you actually had the odor abatement as one of the key items for research. But I do look forward to hearing more specifics and more budget information about the odor abatement. And as you and I had talked at one point about what we can do for if you will, the chemical composition of the filter that could be used. That would be interesting to kind of see what those options might be. And if you could just kind of articulate a little bit more about that study that you're planning to do and when that would be executed, so we can kind of give these folks a little time frame on which they can kind of look for some results from us. Thank you.
Sure. So I've already reached out to one of the environmental consultants that the city has worked with on several different projects. We're looking at working with them to do an air monitoring assessment. We'll be collecting samples around the facility and outside of the facility to try to identify, one, what specifically is causing the odors, what compounds, because it's likely a number of different things. Hydrogen sulfide, the rotten egg smell is likely one of the main components of the odors, but there could be other things such as amines, which are nitrogen compounds, or mercaptans, which are I believe there are other sulfur compounds. So identifying what they are specifically is one part of that, and then there are some areas of the plant that we'll be looking at specifically to see, where exactly are they emanating from. So we'll be working with the environmental consultant on that. With our another environmental consultant that we work regularly with on plant process issues, I'll be working with them to sample and analyze different samples of the waste streams to figure out what's the level of precursors like sulfate, for example, which can be broken down in the wastewater treatment process and turns in, there are sulfate reducing bacteria that take that sulfate and then produce hydrogen sulfide in the process. So that is not something we've done in the past. We've routinely sampled the level of hydrogen sulfide in our biogas that's produced at the facility, and I can say that has increased over the years. But as far as those precursor chemicals that may have added to it, we don't have that information yet. And then as part of this high-strength waste project, we'll be looking at what capital improvements we may need to implement for longer-term solutions. And then also, I've been working on a pilot project, organizing a pilot project for an addition of a chemical called ferric chloride. So we may be able to, and this, I think we can do this within our current operating budget, but we would be able to introduce this chemical, which would help bind up hydrogen sulfide and keep it bound up throughout the process. So it will, and going back to the air assessment, we have to figure out what compounds are responsible. But if it is hydrogen sulfide, we should be able to at least reduce that level.
Is there anything that can be done with the structure of the building itself to kind of contain and recycle this air into other uses as opposed to being open up to the community?
I think there are some places that potentially we could implement technologies like spray bars that can spray a mist that can help keep some of those odors down. That's something we'll definitely be looking at. Anaerobic digestion itself tends to produce some of these compounds, and the process that we have, it's called temperature phase anaerobic digestion. And it's the first phase is a thermophilic phase. It operates at about 131 degrees Fahrenheit, and that can produce a lot of odors. Those digesters are sealed at the top. The mesophilic digesters, which operate at about 95 degrees Fahrenheit, those have floating covers, so the edge is exposed to the air, so there is a potential there for some odors to escape.
But so there's no capability to have like a domed structure, just thinking high-tech here and futuristic, to protect and cover?
In the past over our primary clarifiers, which I think, there could be a little bit of odor coming from the primary clarifiers. We do have what we call launder covers that cover the outside of the clarifier, and then there's a vacuum system that routes that material or the air up and away from the system. But there are definitely some things we can do to try to entrap the odors and then get them away.
And what kind of a time frame do you think we would have on this for the people that are here today to kind of have a feeling as to what they can look forward to?
I think some of the short term, like the study and some of the analysis of the waste streams, that could be done probably within the next month or two. A ferric chloride addition pilot, we might be able to start that. That's something that's probably going to, once we start dosing, it may take a couple of months of piloting to figure out what concentration we're going to need to knock that level down. If hydrogen sulfide, which I suspect is one of the major components there. So I think within a few months here, we should be able to see some results.
Good. Well, I think we all greatly appreciate the effort here and the time frame, the short and the longer term resolution to the odor abatement. And by the way, Brad, I'm one of those people that walk South Grandview too, and especially over this weekend with the nice weather, it was pretty obvious that it was not the most comfortable air to be breathing as we were taking our daily walk. So thank you guys again, and thank you very much, Willie. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Resnick.
Yes, thank you. First of all, so my father was the director of the wastewater treatment plant in Davenport, so we had some visits with that, and we noticed something was different. And also, all of the city council members go on a tour of all the departments. So we've all been down there, right there at the primary treatment house, and so we know what you're talking about. But it does remind me of we had a discussion of the noise ordinance a couple of years back, and it was my contention that if it's a noisy neighborhood, just made the neighborhood unlivable. And I'm sure this is the same way. It is a really hard to live with, and so let's try not to have to do that. So, curious, what happened 2 or 3 years ago that made this problem more prevalent? Did we add something, or what changed at the plant? About 2 or 3 years ago, it got a whole lot worse, I guess. Did we do any upgrade that kind of degraded the smell, or?
Can't say that I could pinpoint anything specifically that happened 2 or 3 years ago. I mean, as I noted before, the hydrogen sulfide level in the biogas has increased over time. I think originally, when the plant was designed, the system for removing the hydrogen sulfide from the biogas was designed for a concentration of about 500 parts per million. And we're currently probably between 2,000 and 3,000 parts per million of hydrogen sulfide. So there's a significant level there.
Yeah, in preparation for this, I looked at a few things in your area, and unfortunately, there's many methods to do this, and there's no best way to do this. It all depends on the specifics. Are you looking at wet air scrubbing? That's something that's supposed to be the most reliable. What is that, and is that possible here?
As I mentioned before, like using what we would call spray bars, I mean, there is potential for implementing some type of a system that would create a mist in certain areas.
That's wet air
essentially
scrubbing.
knock down some of those odors. I think some of our residents that spoke before talked about some of the conditions that you might see when the air is, and I'm paraphrasing, but like if it's foggy or the air is heavier, that material tends to sit. And I guess in my short conversation with the environmental consultant we're looking at getting a proposal from, one of them, his specialty is meteorology, and so there are a whole bunch of factors, including meteorology, topography, that all weigh into this, and how those compounds are transported or kept, down when it's foggy, when it's rainy. That material tends to sit down, and so I think in that way, I mean, that demonstrates that this spray bar or scrubbing technique would probably work fairly well.
I see, thank you. And nobody likes the rate increases that we have. I just wanted to say that they're not a surprise. And Mr. Van Milligan, if you can refresh my memory, I believe that these rate increases have been planned and approved several times by the council. It's like we have at least a 5-year schedule, and nobody likes to see this, but it is a strategy to ensure the most efficient delivery of services. I mean, this is not something just that we're surprised that there's an increase this year, correct?
Yeah, I would agree with that in general. There's a lot of variables that go into every year when we do the budget. And, one of our hopes, variables this year is, our hope is that we are able to qualify for some of this $1.1 trillion in federal infrastructure money. But as we've talked about in other budget hearings, you have to spend money to get money. So we have to have projects prepared, designed, to be ready to qualify for those dollars. 60% of that money, that federal money, is going to be through competitive grants. And so while we all like to think the key word there is grants, the key word there is competitive, because if you don't get it, it doesn't matter if it's a grant. In what we're facing right now is the need to spend dollars to hopefully qualify for opportunities to improve our systems.
And thank you. My final question is, I mean, you've looked over many methods. Maybe it's way too early to give me a round number about the cost of significantly reducing the odors. There's a way to do it. Everything costs some money. Do you have any round numbers?
So this ferric chloride addition that I was talking about, this really depends on the concentration that we're going to need, and the pilot project would help us flesh that out. But it's probably in the range of $100,000 to $200,000 a year. However, that will have some offsets. There'll be some benefits where we can potentially save money on polymer. There is granular media we use to remove hydrogen sulfide from the biogas that's fairly pricey. And there'll be quite an offset there. Whether it's going to be, 100% offset, I don't think so, but I think it will be significant. So I think there's a lot we can do in the current operating budget to address that.
Well, thank you for your help with this. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Sprank.
Willie, with all the fund shortness of materials and stuff, are you concerned that you're going to see any chemical shortages or anything with all the stuff? Because I remember when I first met you, you explained the process in like 26 easy steps, and it's like, and I may have exaggerated that number, but I think it seemed like it was that many. It just seems like you need a lot of chemicals. And are you concerned with any of that stuff at all this coming year?
I would not say that my concern level is extremely high. I mean, we have had some price increases for polymer. We've been contacted by letter several times from our oxygen supplier, Airgas, saying they might not be able to meet our full requirement for a certain period due to COVID, not having sufficient drivers. So we are seeing some impacts. And then ordering equipment, there are some pretty significant lead times on equipment. We ordered a truck, I think it's like a F-250 with a plow on the front. I think we ordered it last July, and we're still waiting. We're hopeful to get it this fiscal year yet, but that's yet to be seen. So, I mean, we are seeing some impacts, but by and large, we've been able to keep things operational with very little effects.
Thank you.
Other thoughts or comments? So if I could summarize, just from what I'm hearing here from the conversation, first of all, to Mr. Clower, Mr. Plummer, everybody who's here today, it appears to me that listening to Willie and listening to the council up here that we've heard you, we've heard your concerns, and we appreciate you bringing them to us. We all did receive the petition that you had the neighbors talk with. Mr. Palmer, I think you brought it up specifically that you spoke to people personally, door to door, and they had very similar concerns. I mean, that speaks volumes. It's really important that we hear that kind of information. So we're very thankful that you brought it forward. I'm most thankful that you have had discussions with Willie and his team to be able to respectfully and collaboratively and cooperatively try to deal with this problem. I would encourage that we continue that we can make sure that we're all cooperating in the best way that we possibly can. I'm also hearing that right now you're working on this. Currently, you're figuring out ways that you can that we can do something about it. So we need to fully identify the problem to really understand what we're working with here, and then from there you're looking at short-term fixes that you would hope to be able to implement within this year, within the budget that you have. Hopefully, if you're able to, if it fits within the identified problem once you actually survey it and get that problem identified. But you're also planning for long-term fixes. I mean, we're also, that kind of goes along with the conversation we've been having all night long about planning ahead. This problem appears to have come from the fact that we're growing in some way, shape, or form. The waste stream is changing. So these are good things that have caused a problem, and we need to be able to figure that out. So the long-term fix is something that we'll keep working on. I think the most important thing here is that we are working on it, and we're working on it together. We all live here too. We don't want to ignore anybody who's in the community, and it just so happens that you live in a neighborhood that I think most of the community uses in some way or another. I've made many a bike ride down the Ripro Valley into the Mines of Spain. So, walking on Grand View, working with one of the most beautiful places we have in the city in the Mines of Spain, I think is something that we're all, it's all very important to us. So thank you very much for that. And thank you. If there's no other comments or discussion, really appreciate your presentation tonight and all the work that you're doing. And thank you. All right. Okay, then we are on to our last budget hearing for the evening, Public Works. We'll let that get set up here, and then we'll get started. Adrian, as we do this, I'm noticing on both Public Works and the Water and Resource Recovery Center, the PowerPoints aren't there. I'm sure it's an oversight in some direction, but I'm wondering if those are something that would be added later on, potentially. Okay, wonderful. Thank you. All right. Last but not least, right? Yeah, all right. John, well, thank you very much. We'll let you get started.
Great. Thanks for having us tonight. I'm John Klosterman, Public Works Director. And we know you've had a long night already, but we're excited to be here tonight. Mayor, I think you saw it. You said something on the first night of budget presentations that it's great just to be together and to be without masks. So we're excited to be here. We think we have some exciting information that we'll be able to share with you about Public Works.
Yeah. Can I mention one thing as you go to your next slide, too, because I forgot a little piece that I've been doing for everybody. You have 17 improvement package requests, and 13 of which are recommended, but then that's in Public Works. There's also within the landfill, I saw 6 requests, all of which are recommended. So you can go on.
Thank you. So recently we've had a chance to take our leadership team together, and we've been working on revising our mission statements and also values and vision statements. So we'd like to provide you with an updated mission statement. Public Works takes pride in leveraging necessary resources to maintain the heart of Dubuque by steadfast, equitable delivery of organization and community-wide services while maintaining reliable infrastructure to cultivate a vibrant, connected community. The Beat of Dubuque is maintained through preservation, construction, rehabilitation, daily operations, and the 24/7 emergency response the Public Works Department provides. Our vision and value statement has been developed recently by our leadership team, and in part it reads that Public Works will be recognized for its commitment to providing services that meet the needs of Dubuque citizens. We've looked at and added safety, community focus, integrity, communication, and equity to this vision and safety by far being, our number one priority. We'd also like to remind everyone the department provides staff support to the Dubuque Metropolitan Agency Board of Directors and the landfill operations. This is an overview of our current staff at Public Works. We have currently 93.28 full-time equivalent employees positions. We divide that among 24 activities in 5 major areas. This year we're requesting a change to that, a slight change. We're requesting 1 part-time secretary position. We will be eliminating 3 seasonal positions and requesting 1 new regional collection center technician assigned to the landfill operation, and combining 2 of the seasonal positions into 1 yard waste snow fighter position. The net increase would be 0.15 full-time equivalents. I'm proud to work with all this leadership team, and we're proud to have everyone in place now after some transition periods. Anderson was promoted and moved forward. So we've been able to fill that position. Ariel Swift is the Assistant Public Works Director, who you'll hear from shortly. Paul Davis is with us tonight, and we want to make sure we acknowledge him. Paul's our field supervisor, and he's our go-to guy. I tell you, he gets everything done for us. Other staff have things going, or else I know at least a couple of them are out on training. DMA SWA Administrator Ken Miller and DMA SWA Facility Supervisor Doug Hughes. Also Fleet Maintenance Supervisor Tom Keel. And then our newest member of our management team is Jacob Jansen. Jake joins us part-time, limited position right now. He's usually in the office on Thursday and Friday as he's finishing up his responsibilities with his master's studies. So we're excited to have him on board. He's already provided some great valuable input. So at this time, I'm going to turn the presentation over to Assistant Public Works Director Ariel Swift.
Thank you, John. Ariel Swift, Assistant Public Works Director. Now, our leadership team is a very small part of those ensuring that the City of Dubuque remains a high-performance organization upheld by these 4 pillars. And if you don't have it memorized by now, we do this through planning, partnerships, and people. But what does that look like in Public Works? Well, we plan, right? We plan ADA ramps associated with our overlay program to ensure accessibility is the most up-to-date in the neighborhoods we overlay. We plan increases in training for our personnel, whose positions we revamp every time there's an opportunity. As we automate processes, it allows for a faster response time for employees and the community, and more time providing direct service to the community. In the very near future, we will have a large item pickup scheduling option online to piggyback off of the Equitable Technological Access IT and Engineering have been working on, which is just one of our many partnerships. Engineering, in fact, is a frequent partner for us, from traffic control to cameras to pavement marking and ADA ramps for the overlay program. We partner with the county and Asbury for winter maintenance and a few overlays. Recently, we partnered with Asbury to overlay the section of Pennsylvania Avenue between Radford and Seiple, and were recently approved by you all to partner with Dubuque County to overlay a segment of Old Highway Road and Cousins Road. We've revamped the apprenticeship program that was designed specifically to increase diversity in Public Works Department, and we have partnered with Fountain of Youth this year and NICC for a very well-rounded program. Our partnerships are to increase or maintain the service level provided by Public Works. As we look at diversion and level of service that we do provide, we would not be as successful without the assistance from the Dubuque Dubuque Metropolitan Area Solid Waste Agency, I'll just say DMASWA from now on, and Housing and Community Development. We partnered with DMASWA to increase diversion through the electronic drop-off event that was held at the Municipal Services Center this year. And that diverted 340 electronics with screens. DMASWA has also diverted over 7,600 pounds of household hazardous materials through their HHM mobile event. We removed glass curbside collection from our program, but DMASWA has recently deployed glass containers throughout the town and has diverted just over 412,000 pounds of glass. And because of lifted restrictions on community development block grant during COVID, we were able to partner with housing to finance large item pickups for low-income tract areas. And through that program, we were able to divert 795 TVs, tires, and appliances for the people of our community, total impacting 1,392 citizens. The impact our people, staff, have on our people, staff, and community looks like this. 1,383 CDBG financed large item pickups, over 7,600 fleet work orders. So this is the garage maintenance that is provided to the Jewel, fire, police, other departments in Dubuque. 1,278 overlay addresses directly connected to the streets we overlaid this year. Ongoing public input with over 17,000 phone calls this past year. I know, it's crazy. And over 75% of those directly related to solid waste. And like everything, in order to provide these services, well, we need a budget. Public Works is requesting just under $1.2 million in net property tax support. This totals an average of $17.60 of homeowners' property tax paid. And while this is quite a bit of money, you may think, how in the world do they provide the level of service they do with only $1.2 million of property tax support? Well, that's because $1.2 million is only 6.32% of our budget. The rest is financing, which ensures those benefiting from and utilizing services are the ones paying for it. 53.6% of revenue is through user and service fees like solid waste and sewer funds. 10% of revenue through that garage fleet maintenance that I mentioned earlier, and 36.5% street salt and snow and ice control through the state road use tax. Of our total funding, which is broken out in 4 major categories here, the majority, 91.4%, goes directly and is paid directly by, or to employee expense and supplies and services, which means the majority goes to employees that are utilizing the resources provided by this budget that directly impact and provide a service to the community. So how are we doing on these services? And this is my favorite part of this presentation because I really get to brag on Paul and the other supervisors and the people who really make John and I look good. This visualization shows the correlation between overtime costs and snowfall inches per winter season. The orange line represents total frozen precipitation during winter seasons. The blue bars represents regular overtime costs. The chartreuse, Kelly Bucanow, thank you. Chartreuse colored bars are holiday-specific overtime, and the white numbers represent the number of weekend days our staff was on site directly related to snow plowing, salting, or snow removal. As you can see here, Dubuque is having quite a good year thus far in both overtime costs and weather. Sorry, Corey, you might have to get yours out tonight. But while April showers bring May flowers, winter weather brings potholes. And we are fortunate that the same trucks and same dedicated staff that are out on the streets plowing during the winter season, well, they're the same ones maintaining our infrastructure, both seen and unseen. We had such great feedback with the additional 5 miles in fiscal year 2022 that was funded by ARPA that we are recommending another 10-mile program in fiscal year 23. We used to do 10 miles all the time, and then laws change and our hands are tied, and then we can only do half of what we were able to do before with less funding. In calendar year 26, there was an unforeseen increase in road use tax, which is why we were able to get to 7.11 miles. And in calendar year 2017, we were able to use savings from snow and ice and move that over into the overlay program. So anytime we're able to squeeze a penny out and use it for an overlay, we try to. And that's because the equitable funding source for this project, as I stated before, ensures the people that are using the roads are the ones that are paying for the upkeep. This funding allows us to overlay residential areas without assessing the homeowners. But who are these property owners that we're impacting? Well, we're able to report this information due to a partnership with transportation. Shout out to Jake Ironside for compiling this data for us, so we're able to provide it to you. The blue dashed line represents the citywide demographic makeup of low income, which sits at 17.9%. The blue bars represent the same demographic for property owners who live within a quarter mile of our overlay. The chartreuse dashed line represents citywide demographic makeup of minorities, which sits at 12.5%. And the chartreuse bars represent the same demographic for property owners who live within a quarter mile of the overlaid street. Our goal in Public Works is to ensure that the impact that we're having on the community is representative of the demographic makeup or better. While we do need to take other factors into account, we are excited to see our crews consistently exceed at least one of these each year. With over 300 miles of sewer lines underground, which we don't see all the time, well, we see, and it's not pretty, but that you guys don't see all the time, it's another measure that our crews exceed annually, and is required by our consent decree to do at least 100 miles. Now, there's been some employee turnover this year, but that didn't slow these guys down. They completed 102.56 unique miles, and I say unique because we have 6.5 miles continuously done each month. That's not included in this unique mileage, 4.8 each quarter, and another 12.37 miles twice a year. So on top of this 102.56, they're also completing an additional 242.93 miles in a year. And if that's not resourceful, I don't know what is. Or maybe I do. Resource management. First and foremost, we can see a breakout of all the curbside collection done by solid waste crews. In fiscal year 21, we can see the dramatic COVID-related increase from residential areas through work and lifestyle changes. Here we see, let me see, I got this number here. And the percentage, I believe it's 15% increase from 20 to 21. But nationally, we're seeing as high as 20 to 30% in residential areas directly related to COVID. People working from home, different lifestyle changes, eating out, bringing all that styrofoam home, it's not recyclable, et cetera. We are seeing a 3.3% decrease in recycling tonnage, but what does that mean? Here's a visual representation of material collected based on the last sort completed. We are intending to do a sort this summer as well to get the most up-to-date data. The United States Post Office reports a decline in the units delivered from 2017 to 2021 by 13.8%. Reduction of newspaper and mail affects the highest categories of materials received in our curbside collection, which makes up 88%. Also, plastic packaging, referred to as lightweighting, which manufacturers instituted to reduce costs, has made many plastic packages low value recyclables, or not accepted at curbside. So while your Amazon purchase might no longer come in a box 5 times larger than necessary, you might get it in that package that has the 4 and the triangle, but that falls under sheeting, and that's not accepted curbside. Through our large item pickup program, we also see a COVID-related and enforcement-related increase between 2019 and 2020. In 2021, we wanted to visually break out the CDBG financed large item pickups, which did include 1,760 hopperfuls, and for those of you guys who don't know, a hopper load is the equivalent of, we'll say, a regular sized couch, since we don't like the metric system. And they get charged for a hopper full, whether they fill it all the way to the brim or not. So 1,760, we don't have the tonnage on that, but that's just how many times a truck ran across the scale. 1,038 people were able to clean out their basements, their closets, their attics, their yards through this program for no cost to the homeowner and no paperwork. The program was designed and based on census tract data, so all they had to do was call, schedule a pickup, and provide an address. In fiscal year 23, we are recommending the low-income discount program remain static at $7.69 off, or 50% off the basic rate. We currently have 325 customers utilizing this relief program. Looking at how Dubuque compares to the 11 largest cities, we come in 4th place. Davenport comes in lowest, and Ames is still highest. The orange dollar amounts represent the cities or the amounts that have increased over fiscal year 2022. So you can see there's 8 cities out of the 11 largest that have increased their rates from fiscal year 22 to fiscal year 23. Here you can see the yellow arrows represent 22 standing against the city of Dubuque, and the green arrows are fiscal year 23. The orange dotted line represents Dubuque at $15.38. Now, West Des Moines was 20% lower than Dubuque last year. They did increase their rate a whopping $2.80 this year, so they're no longer the lowest. The lowest is Davenport at $14.22, and they are 8% lower than us. Ames was 71% higher last year, and this year they're still the highest at 89% higher than Dubuque. And the average without Dubuque has also increased 9 percentage points. So what does this mean for our citizens? Drum roll, please. Okay. There may be no drum roll, but there is also no recommended rate increase. What is amazing is that at $15.38 in fiscal year 23, we are still lower than pre-pandemic. In fiscal year 2020, our recommended rate that was approved was $15.62. And in 2019, $15.37. So since 2019, inflation year over year has added to 12.39% and growing. We've increased our rate 1 cent, which is absolutely fantastic. I mean, it's just amazing that we were able to do that. So what's included in the fiscal year 23 budget for Public Works? A communication casting module. As Chris had mentioned in her IT one, a lot of our employees don't have consistent access to computers. So this allows them to get information on a TV screen in the break rooms whenever they come and go. Part-time secretary, accreditation application, which we're very, very excited about because it's going to ensure, 1, smooth succession planning, and 2, ensure that Dubuque is implementing the best practices nationwide for Public Works. In a partnership with police, portable barriers, normally during large public gatherings like the 4th of July event, we provide trucks. So now instead of providing our trucks and putting them at risk, and we'll be able to use these to keep citizens safe. A grapple attachment for storm cleanup, a mowing attachment to keep up with the Northwest Arterial mowing, backhoe upgrade. These next 2 align with our #1 safety value. Safety training and legal safety signs for high speeds like the Northwest Arterial. An additional 5-mile overlay, so $392,000 for the hot mix and the tack oil and all those nitty-gritty operational costs, and then $20,000 for sewer rings and lids. A yard waste and snow fighter position, and a sustainable materials management consultant, which is recurring and will develop ways to improve recycling and diversion and will include a rate study. An improvement package that, again, is also tied to #1 safety value and that we're super excited about are tipper carts that come in at $582,698 for fiscal year 23. Now, in the policy book, it did show 291 recurring and 291,000 non-recurring. And the reason for that is we couldn't say all $582 was recurring because it's not. And we couldn't say all of it was non-recurring because some of it is. So that's why you see it split out 5,000 carts, 5,000 carts, and then in fiscal year 24, there will also be another 5,000 carts. Our tentative plan is to purchase 10,000 35-gallon carts with money in year 1. All of that ARPA money, we plan to do 100% for 35-gallon carts, which is the basic rate. It's already included in that rate. It's our largest customer base, right? So let's get those carts out first. The mandatory cart and automated collection proposal does not change the way that we charge customers. So everyone pays the basic rate. That covers operations for both solid waste and subsidized programs like yard waste, food waste, and recycling. This automation proposal does not increase monthly base rate. But without ARPA, we're looking at an increase of $3.77 a month just in this year. That's before inflation, so now is definitely the time. That's an increase of 24.5%. There's no way we're ever going to want to increase a rate in 1 year by 24.5%. If approved, we anticipate this recurring cost of $70,000 that was approved last year would decrease to $15,000, which would save us $55,000 a year in perpetuity, and the net present value of that, assuming a decrease of 2% for cost and some variance, right? We want some safety there, so a decrease in growth in that $55,000, and using the 30-year Treasury bill rate of 2.6, I believe it is, the net present value of that in perpetuity is $1.17 million. So it pays for itself, except we're not paying for it. ARPA is, right? So ARPA funding needs to be fully spent within 2 years. So we will never have a better opportunity to do this than we do now. The ARPA ruling states recipients may use state and local fiscal recovery funds to replace lost public sector revenue, using this funding to provide government services up to the amount of revenue lost due to the pandemic. It goes on to say how to calculate the lost revenue, and ends with recipients may use funds up to the amount of revenue lost for government services. What's government service, right? That's big. Well, luckily, they tell us right here. Services traditionally provided by the recipient governments are government services. For Dubuque, curbside collection and associated tipper cart proposal is included in government services. So, what's a tipper cart? In being responsive to the Resiliency Commission direction, we provided more cart options and implemented our pilot program. We now provide these 4 options, 35, 48, 64, and 96 gallon. It's important to note that there is no increased cost, again, for a 35-gallon cart provided and maintained by the city. So a tire goes out, we come out, we replace it. You bend your axle, you break off a lid, we replace it. Any smaller cart option provided would require manual collection. They're too small and too short to automate. That's just a fact. So unfortunately, 35 for automation in particular is as small as we can go. With that being said, we have seen tremendous demand for 35 and 48-gallon carts, so it was a great idea to offer those options. People love them. This is what we have out in the field. Outside of the blue line represents the big 96-gallon recycling carts, which are also very, very in demand. We have already mandated 48-gallon carts in some areas, and larger carts are frequently used to serve multiplexes. We can see here the larger carts are the most prevalent carts deployed, but with the jump in 48-gallon and the jump in 35-gallon carts, we can see our community is choosing the right size for their house. 48-gallon carts have grown 107% since the first year they were offered, from 21 to so far in 22, and 22 is not even over yet. 35-gallon carts have grown 77%. We received a delivery actually this Friday, March 18th, of 450 35-gallon carts, and Paul and his crew, in 2 working days, deployed 200 of those carts. They're already out in the community. They're a hit. They're just a hit. So with this citywide program, we are recommending an ordinance change to remove additional 34-gallon and all 50-gallon containers. These options were provided before we had the breadth of cart options that we have today, and these households will move to the cart of their choice. We will work directly with the customers to find the right size and to improve their solid waste experience while educating them on additional diversion opportunities. Now, John Klosterman is going to walk us through capital improvement projects, future initiatives and automation.
Thanks, Ariel. Lots of things in Public Works. Capital improvement projects, I won't read all these to you. Some of them are reoccurring costs every year. Our asphalt milling program and our curb ramp program is directly tied to our asphalt overlay program. We traditionally put money away for the repair of the flood wall so we can keep that up in good condition so it performs as designed when needed. Our curb replacement program is a small program that allows us to do curb replacements as needed when requested or in conjunction with property owner work. A lot of times they'll want to repair their driveway approach and the curb is bad. So this type of projects we can work with, having this funding allows us to work with property owners on those type of projects. We also use that money to improve some of the curb work along some of our overlay programs. Sign and street replacement is ongoing. Concrete street repair is the same ongoing maintenance program for small projects. Steps and handrails the same way, just money set aside year after year so we can keep updated and keep our infrastructure, extend the life of what we have. The Ice Harbor Gates fender replacement project, you're kind of wondering what that is all about. That is the wooden ties that are on the Ice Harbor gates to protect them from any damage that may occur if a boat would bump up against them. So those were, part of the initial installation and our time for rotted away and time for replacement. The central storage roof repair is related to, the former Jewel facility on Central Avenue. We now use that facility for citywide storage. There's a couple of air exchange units up on the roof that have seen better days and the water's starting to penetrate into the building. We want to remove those and put that roof back in good condition. I was always told if you lose your roof, you lose your facility. So we want to make sure that we stay up on that. The roof on the rest of that facility has actually been repaired over the years and replaced, so it's in very good shape. If we take care of that project now while it's a small project, we can keep from becoming much bigger. Ariel already talked about the improvement package for the mini. So right now we have one mini excavator. We have a number of backhoes. We're replacing existing backhoe. It's up for replacement. Our crews prefer to use the minis. They're much easier to work with in the type of construction that we do. Vehicle access doors. Our facility is going on 16 years old now already. A lot up and down on those vehicle entry doors throughout the day, throughout the year, and some of those are starting to need replacement. Our vacuum sweeper and the fleet oil lubrication system is an extension of what we have in place now, along with some replacement to upgrade the current system that we have at the Municipal Services Center. The electric vehicle infrastructure is a project that we're partnering with Alliant Energy on to provide charging stations at the Municipal Services Center. One other project that I want to make sure you're aware of is the solid waste vehicle replacement schedule over the next few years. Some of that does include ARPA funding. In fiscal year 23, $95,399 of ARPA money will be used for the upgrade of the system to include the arm. And in fiscal year 25, another $50,731 will be used to also upgrade a current replacement truck to include an arm. For our future initiatives, currently one of our improvement requests is to provide simulator training to snow and ice control staff. We feel this year, due to turnover, retirements, we may have up to 7 new employees that will be behind the wheel for the first time this winter. That's the largest number of new employees that we'll have in that position. So this simulator will be a great first field test for them. But what we'd like to do is, in the future, for a future initiative, is seeing if that can also move into the solid waste area, also partner with our other departments such as transit. The simulators have a lot of options to them. We'd bring them in for 2 or 4 days, provide that training, and then of course, we'd move on. They'd move on. So that's a great opportunity. We hope we can expand upon that. A quick overview of what the electrification project would be. We'd be running underground to the area circled in phase 1. There'll be 8 chargers put in on that stage, and then we'll also run infrastructure over to the area in the south, across the street from on the Kerper Court there, identified in yellow, where we'll add additional charging stations in the future as that need outgrows. Once again, that is a partnership with Alliant Energy. A project that's not really under, it's an engineering project, but very important to our operation, very important to the flood control system, and that's a replacement of the B Branch pumping station. And we're really pleased on how that design has come together. It's going to double our pumping capacity, and we look forward to that project and hopefully in the near future. Just want to take the opportunity to talk a little bit more about our proposal for mandatory carts and automated collection. I think there's been some information that maybe has been accidentally overlooked and some clarifications that may need to be made. We have an antiquated system. We have basically the same system that we have. We do different things, but basically it was a manual system when I started 47 years ago, and it's still a manual system. Now, with any infrastructure, we wouldn't be looking to keep doing the same thing and hope that, it would continue to work for us. This system needs to be updated. If we compare to other cities across Iowa, almost every major city uses carts in their collection system. If we compare to Iowa City, we're 20 years behind. They've been using cart systems in their system for 20 years. So it's not new. It's not new to other areas. Our neighbors at Asbury, our neighbors in East Dubuque all use a cart system. I talked to one of our independent contractors who said they're to the point where they won't bid on a system unless it's carts and automated collection. That is the future for solid waste, and that's the future that we should also be going. Just to review the goals of the program of automation: safety is first, safety is staff. And in order to do that, automated collection and carts has to be part of that. Improvement efficiencies with our collection system. Once again, needs to be part. Automated collection has to be part of that. Mandatory carts have to be a part of that. It does preserve the current system as pay-as-you-throw, and you can say it doesn't, but it does. We're not changing as you heard, we're not raising rates. We're not changing the current system that's been in place for a number of years. So that's just not true. It does improve the aesthetics of neighbors, and on set-out days, every cart will have a lid, and that's certainly not the case if you drive around and see set-outs now. I'll say a lot of our set-outs, privately owned containers, do not have lids. Finally, I think it prepares us well for future growth. And, we're looking all the time to add new subdivisions, future growth. The program also provides safety not only to our crews, but also to the residents. It's much easier to roll out a cart than what it is to carry out a can out in front of you or drag it out to the curb for collection. Studies show that 10 pounds of weight that you lift puts 1,250 pounds of pressure on your lower back. That's fact. That's well known. While it won't end all problems with our collection system and problems that we see on some of these setouts, and we see these every day. Ariel and I receive emails from staff that are out in the street at least 4 or 5 times per day. And fortunately, because of the coordination between field staff and office staff, we're able to contact the owners, work through the situation, and we're able to correct a lot of those in the same day. But carts will definitely help that. The wear and tear on the body of our staff is tremendous. Years and years ago, and I would never be able to do it now, but, you know, I did have the opportunity to start out and work on the back of a rubbish truck, and it's grueling. I mean, it is a tough job. They collect 600 stops a day, so if you just look at 600 stops a day, 5 days a week, and then times it, you know, by the number of crews that we have, or 5 crews, you're over 580,000 stops per year. If you look at that by individual, that's a lot of in and out transitions, probably over, you know, estimated 150,000 per person. That's a lot of wear and tear on your knees and ankles. The safest place for our employees to be is in the truck. Now, some people say this is just bad luck, but, you know, history repeats itself. We have an aging staff, and we hope they continue to age, but we want them to age healthy. You know, this is a big impact. Days out of work provides, you know, other pressure on other people to do that collection. The work needs to be done. The more, of course, if you have a full staff, you're able to share that work. If you lose 1 or 2 people, you know, that work's still there, and it falls back to the rest of the crews that operate that. These are 2020 summary statistics. Believe it or not, solid waste collection is very dangerous. In 21, there were 28 fatalities nationwide related to solid waste. 24 of those deaths were directly related to the collection of solid waste. And that's tragic. Currently, you have a mix of different types. We have voluntary use of carts, and worked great for a pilot program. We found out what we could do, found out what our challenges would be. But if we're going to move forward, we need full collection, we need full mandation of the cart system. It'll help us clean up these areas. It'll provide for a better collection both on our part. It'll be better for the neighborhoods on collection day. Now, in the areas that we can't fully automate, it's still worthwhile having carts. Because as you can see on the picture on the left, all trucks are currently equipped with a semi-automated cart tipper. The crews do have to go to the curb to get it and pull it out, but you know, they're still not manually dumping that. They still don't have direct contact with the trash during that process. Of course, the best area, and we've determined that over 74% of our current system can be collected by automation, and that's only going to grow as the city grows. And I believe we'll do better than that once we get used to and learn the different areas. Pay as you throw, once again, has not changed. We're not changing any rate structure, but we do have a progressive rate schedule in place right now, and it's, like I said, been in place for a number of years. It's progressive both in incremental rates and also basic rates. As you can see, the more you throw, there is a cost that goes with that. There's been talk about the FOTH study that was completed in 2019. It was an operational study for solid waste along with a fee study. And there were three areas that we looked at for tasks. Review of the current operations, conduct a community engagement campaign, and review the fee structure. And those were all completed back in 2019. Review of the current operations. Both recommendation was to purchase carts and automated collection and identified benefits of an automated program, including worker health and safety, limited need for two-person routes, and higher job satisfaction by our staff. Those are right out of the FOTH. Also, part of that was a community engagement campaign. So to say that there was zero community engagement, it just is not correct. That's just not correct. 785 responses to the community survey and social media polls. Part of that, 80% of the customers would support changing the trash carts and automated collection. That's the finding. And once again, that's right in the FOTH study. Once again, on the review of the task 3, 60% would not pay more for more capacity. So the fact that everybody's going to move to these larger carts and pay more isn't supported by the study, the FOTH study. We believe, and Ariel said, our focus in the first year is to provide carts using ARFA money, 35-gallon carts to the residents so we can backfill that and provide them with the basic service that they want. Now you got to remember that basic service also supports recycling yard waste, food scraps that are not self-supporting. While there is a fee associated with them, they are not self-supporting. So that it's very important to understand that the basic fee also covers the other activities that we provide in solid waste. In conclusion, we believe the time to move this project forward is now. We've provided a solution to the rate structure that does not, a solution to the cost that does not affect the rate structure. We know that it increased safety for our employees. We believe it's going to be better for the community, and it puts us in better condition for growth. So we truly believe that now is the time. Before we leave, we want to thank all our employees that provide the service to the community. It's been pretty tough the last couple of years, but they did a great job. Anything else? No. We're open for questions.
I have a tissue.
Thank you, John and Ariel, for the presentation. We will open for public comment first, please.
At this time, anyone participating in the meeting in person who would like to discuss this public hearing may approach the podium when the mayor asks if there is any in-person input for this public hearing. For all remote attendees, please enter your name and address in the chat function and state your question, or state your name and address over the phone when the mayor asks if there is any virtual input for this public hearing. Please begin your input by stating your name and address.
All right, do we have any public input in person?
My name is Chuck Harris. I'm here, 2473 Jackson, by the way, so that way we know. I come before you as a representative of the North End Neighborhood Association, mainly to speak about the tipper card implementation. As Ariel and John both identified, it's a aesthetic thing with the neighborhood for us, in the sense that we have 3 pillars as part of our neighborhood association, which is clean, quiet, and safe. This is one that helps us do the clean aspect. And in regards to that, I believe that tipper carts are a way of reducing trash blowing around. As John mentioned in the presentation, set outs are open, things can blow around, and so that makes it much easier for us to keep it clean and safe in there. I also come to speak to you regards because we are behind the times. We're one of the last major cities in Iowa that doesn't have carts available, that doesn't have carts mandated across the board in their system. So I think that that's kind of a big one that we need to kind of look at and address. Also, worker safety. I look out my window occasionally and I see guys grabbing bags directly out of cans, throwing them in the back of a truck. I do not want our workers handling trash. There's no reason in this day and age, with the automated systems that are out there, that they need to be handling this whatsoever. It's just stupid, it's dangerous as all get out, and whatnot. In regards to Mr. Schultz and his recent comments in the newspaper, and being a big proponent of zero waste, there are some harsh realities out there. We're not going to be able to recycle our way out of the trash mess that we've had. With the lifestyle changes and the different things that have occurred with COVID, we're not just going to be able to recycle our way out of it. One of the biggest examples is the PET plastic bottles, water bottles that you use that are disposable. The plastic content of those has gone down, which means the value of them has gone down, which also means that the ton, in order to make up that ton of it, you need more of it, which means you need more volume. So yes, you have to look at volume as much as tonnage that you're collecting curbside. Recycling was seen as a long way, but a lot of it was actually done because of the fact that the oil companies in the early 90s saw that in order for them to make their second life beyond cars was to produce oil for plastics. And they developed these systems, marketed them very well, and kept on going. So, but we have to do it in the right way when it comes to recycling. So I think that we need to just go ahead and do this. It's going to be painful on the front end, but I think it's one of those things that it will benefit us immensely in the long run. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Mr. Schultz, you want some comment? I think you'd be next. I'll ask for virtual after that.
My name is Paul Schultz. I reside at 2700 Matthew John Drive. Thanks for the opportunity to speak to the mayor and council. There's so many different issues here that, in my opinion, we should really have a work session here because there's so many aspects to this. And ideally, this should have community input. My biggest problem is this was never identified as a priority in the August sessions. And the guidance document says that the budget is going to be based on the priorities from the August session. It's not there. We don't have any commitment yet toward, mandatory carts. There's no policy direction there that we're going to have mandatory carts. I support expanding automated side loader collection. I support getting more carts that are suitable to larger families or whatever they need. That's not questionable, and anybody right now can get a larger cart if they need a larger cart. The problem here is a matter of what is the current system. The current system is pay as you throw. It's all over the different documents in the city. So what are the principles of pay as you throw? Dubuque uses the pay as you throw collection systems. Okay, what does that mean? It's a financial incentive to waste less. That's what it was based on. But since, 10 years ago, 2012, the rate structure was 1072, and now it's 1538. That's a 70% increase in the base rate, but the tipper carts have not changed in rate. So at 1532, compared to getting in a 48-gallon cart or even a 64, it looks like a great deal. We've gutted the whole principle of creating less waste, which is landfilling, which has climate impacts. So pay as you throw is supposed to be fair, but all of the rates fell on the lowest volume generators. It's not fair. It is supposed to create less waste. By the numbers that I see, even on the charts, which the tonnage, the numbers that I got from John show something different, show an increase of 11,000 some tons a year ago to 13,000 some tons the last year. In 1 year, we went up almost 2,000 tons. So we're in a different skew. Basically, John's approach is that this is a solid waste system, and we pick up the stuff at the curb. But it's a resource management system. That's different than picking stuff up at the curb. It means getting the materials where they should go. You know, the people have to do that. They have to be inspired and challenged, and maybe in a campaign, to know how we're doing, you know, on that. And there needs to be enforcement. If people are not doing the right thing, they need to be educated and with soft enforcement to follow up with them. So recycling, John said to the Resiliency Commission that recycling at the curb is a convenience that we provide. I disagree. That's a fundamental piece of pay-as-you-throw. So we need to get on the same page of what is pay-as-you-throw, you know, on this. That's the fundamental thing. And we also have other goals. So the other goals seem to have a climate goal of a 50% reduction in per capita, 50% diversion in per capita relating to recycling by 2030. That's our goal in the Climate Action Plan that you passed. It's also the EPA goal. We're at 16.9% right now. In 2006, we were at 40% recycling diversion. Where did we go? That was before we even got on the train about sustainability and resilience. So I think there's just, you know, I could talk, you know, regarding a whole lot of things, but part of my concern is that the maintenance budget has ARPA funds in there, something like 700,000. In that, not just the improvement increment, this is the maintenance budget, which is not, you don't jump that money in there. There's at least $500,000 of other carts under a line item called replacement equipment. Well, there isn't any replacement equipment, you know, of those kind of items. It would be replacing everything, and all the carts that are out there in the last 10 years have a 15-year warranty. It's stockpiling other carts in there. It doesn't belong. It's not a maintenance item, and neither does clearly the ARPA. I read the line item that you stated, talking about if it's a traditional, or whatever the language was, governmental service, it's okay. Well, this is a municipal utility which is supposed to be run like a business. And so if a regular business can't tend to get this kind of thing, it's not as clearly ethical or, you know, allowed in doing that. So it doesn't belong in the maintenance budget. I think we just need time to sort out these things. The ARPA money could be available in another year after we actually have a plan, because we never had a plan here. And it just jumps out at us in January, you know, that this is what we're going to do. It's not even on the planning group that has been working on ARPA funding that has 62 different items on there. This is not even there. So it's coming out of the blue. This affects everybody in terms of all of the customers that are supposed to be doing stuff. And you know, it just shouldn't happen right now. Let's take a breath. You got a new resource management supervisor coming in. You got some money to help us fix the rate structure to be just, to help us to find better ways to put these different things together. So let's use the good technology where we can, but let's measure twice and cut once. Don't put the cart before the horse.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Schultz. We appreciate your comments. And we appreciate you being here again this week to be able to share these thoughts with us. All right, I don't see anybody else here. Do we have any virtual comments, Corey?
There are no virtual comments.
Okay, and
I'd just like to acknowledge receiving one email from Candace Udaly Lobeck of 1715 Glen Oak Street, and that input has been uploaded to the agenda item.
all right, thank you, Adrian. All right, last call, public comment. All right, back to the table then. Mr. Sprank.
Hey, Mr. Mayor. 2 years ago, when I first heard of this idea, I was against the idea of this because then it was bigger carts. Because I know a lot of seniors don't want a bigger cart. They don't need a bigger cart. I'm really glad, though, that we've come to, I feel right now, is a medium ground. The 34 gallons is a good size for a smaller household. And as I noticed over the years of door knocking and getting to know my neighbors, that I don't know if the pay-as-you-throw system has been working because people are hoarding garbage. They're just holding on to things in their garages, in their porches. I don't know why. I don't know if they just don't know how to operate, what's the best way to call up Public Works and be like, hey, I've got this old TV stand I don't know how to get rid of. Or I have 5 old rear projection TVs in my garage. I feel like we've got a long ways to go on this, but I think the carts is a good start. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sprank.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Resnick.
Thank you. Before the meeting, I sent an email to Mr. Van Milligan, and it included a link to South King County near Seattle, and it's a company is Waste Management, and they have a 20-gallon tipper cart, which is the same height as the 35-gallon tipper cart. Because you mentioned before that smaller than 35 gallons would be too short for the automated pickup. But they do it. They have it the same size. There's a picture of it, and Mr. Van Milligan has it and can share if you'd like. But the underneath it, it says the typical weekly garbage service needs, for 1 to 2 people, 20 gallons is plenty. And we have several households, many households with 1 or 2 people. I'm one of those. And 20 gallons is great. Now, I had a larger cart when all 4 kids were home, and that was great. But I really think, you know, the initial purchase of 10,000 carts, I don't know why we can't have some 20-gallon carts in there if they're able to be used in this new system. And they're doing it here in Seattle, there in Seattle, and it's the same height. So are we with the wrong company that we can't get 20-gallon carts that are the same height as the 35-gallon carts?
I haven't had the opportunity to see that yet, but I'm sure I will.
Well, it's my fault. I just sent it to him like 5:30.
But in our research with the company that we use, Toter, which is a natural company, in their brochures, they say that 32 gallons will have to be manually lifted and emptied. So are there other things out there? There may be, but height is not the only thing. It's the dimension of the cart itself. As on the automated collection, the arm comes up and then it wraps that cart. And if that cart is narrower than what that wrap is, it's not going to pick it up. And one of our goals is safety. So,
well, I totally get it. I appreciate it. I agree with it.
We'll definitely, love to look at what's out there. That's for sure.
That's super, because I think that's really important that we can maybe get some possibilities. The 20-gallon would be, I think, a wonderful addition to this. I think we do need this new system, but I do think we need to get a 20-gallon cart. Again, they're using it, and they're using it, with the, I don't know if the same equipment, of course, what we have coming for tipper carts. But these are all automated tipping carts going from 20 to all the way to 96. And anyway, 20 and 35 are the same height. I'm sure you'll explore it, and I hope we do. And then maybe we can make these 10,000, something like 9,000 and 1,000, or whatever you might think of. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
I'd just like, if I could follow up just one quick, you said you had a larger cart at one point. There's two people in just my wife and I actually I have a 48-gallon cart, and because I have a 48-gallon cart, normally I'll have one kitchen bag, which is 13 gallons, until the grandkids come home. Until, our kids come home and come back. Now I have the extra trash, and I'm, of course, the guy think I have plenty of tags in the cupboard for my extra trash, and on trash day I don't. So I subscribe to the larger cart just for convenience.
And if you don't mind, Mr. Mayor,
Absolutely.
What I liked most about that bigger cart that we had was, we put it in the bags, but then you don't have to have everything bagged. You could put in that broken chair and cut it up and put it in there, and they take that away. And, so since everything didn't have to be in bags, I was able to clear out my garage a little bit, that Mr. Sprank was talking about. So there are many advantages, but we have heard from citizens who would like a smaller cart. Thank you.
Ms. Roussel, yes, please, sorry.
Thank you. I have a couple comments, and I agree with what Mr. Resnick said. I had a lot of women at my church who said they usually only put out one bag. But I mentioned that last year when we talked about this, so it's not really anything new here, I thought, well, I think I'll try it. So I got one of the larger carts. And of course, it's not full, but that's not really my goal. But it's so much easier to roll out to the curb than to carry something out. And the lid doesn't fall down the street in the windstorm, which I greatly appreciate. I think, of course, we need to continue to educate people on how to reduce waste and what to recycle and how they can help with our climate action plan and all of that. I think another thing that's helpful that we haven't mentioned is that now, if we provide this nice, sturdy cart, people don't have to worry about, now, how am I going to get to the store to get a new one when my old one no longer works and find a way to get it back to my house? That's a problem for a lot of people. So they wouldn't have to worry about that at all. And I think this does promote our goal of a vibrant, healthy, and safe community. I mean, what's better for our employees than not having to touch all of that trash, especially in light of the pandemic that we've had. And the safety factor is just so important, thinking of every time they get in and out of that vehicle, so important. So I would very much be in support of this, but I'd like us to continue to look at that option for a smaller cart for those people who maybe can't handle a larger one, or they have limited room to store such a container. And my last question is, in your memo, you mentioned special collection ideas for frail, elderly, and disabled persons. Do you have any other additional comments you wanted to add on that particular topic?
Yeah, we recognize that one solution in our town usually doesn't work for anything we try to do. So we have to be able to make adjustments. There may be limited circumstances, and they're more, to be honest, they're going to be rare, because if we all of a sudden just go in another direction, then we're back to right where we started. So, but we will look and we will work directly, one-on-one, with our customers. First of all, we're going to ask everyone to try the 35-gallon cart. Give it a try. If after a month or two, it just isn't going to work, then we'll talk about it and see what we can do to make that. Maybe the smaller cart is a possibility. We'd have to look at what's out there. We have to be able to, two things have to still stay in place though. the thought is that only some people pay the minimum rate. That's just not true. Everybody pays the minimum. Everybody. If you go to a larger cart, you just pay more. But everybody pays the minimum. So if for some reason we have to come up with some type of accommodation, a smaller cart, that basic rate still needs to prevail because we have to support the other activities in the solid waste through that basic rate structure. So, and the other thing is, we gotta still be able to protect our employees. So, and the goals that we listed earlier. So, we're open to ideas. We know that we're going to have to make some adjustments, but once again, we still need to have the base rate, of course, help support all the other things that we do, and we'll definitely work with our customers as they're identified.
Thank you.
Ms. Farmer.
Yes. What is the price of the trucks, the automated truck that you had showed us, and then you had some listed for purchasing again, and then the timeframes when you plan to extend and add to that fleet?
So on a regular basis, we have a replacement schedule for all our fleets, and it just depends on what it is and how often. Normally in solid waste, it's a 10-year replacement schedule. Depending on their use and what they do, some of them are replaced a little bit sooner, some we keep a little bit later. So currently, next fiscal year, we would propose to replace 2 of those trucks with automated collection trucks with the arm. We're expecting those to be in the area of $300,000 with trade-in. That's our price today. I tell you, on all our fleet, it changes daily. And in some cases, we're not even able to get bids yet. So we're really concerned about that. Even on our small, I heard Water and Resource Recovery Center looking for we have trucks right now budgeted that we're trying to get replaced, and we can't even get a bid on them right now. So our current estimate with trade-in is about $300,000. It's usually between $40,000 to $45,000 in extra equipment to make it automated for the arm.
And is this ARPA funds for these trucks, or is this just part of the CIP?
Only I think I said $96,000 in the capital improvement budget for next year to help subsidize the cost of those trucks with ARPA funds.
Mm-hmm.
If this is approved in the budget, we'll quickly start to put our specifications together to mirror the truck that we have in place. It works out really well for us, and we'll try to get those orders. Delivery of trucks are somewhere between 10 and 12 months right now. Cart deliveries, we've waited for carts, not that bad, but 6-8 months. So, we need to move forward. Things won't happen July 1st, even if it is, it'll take, 6-8 months just to get some carts in place, and then a good year to get the equipment to keep moving forward.
And how many trucks do we have?
In our total fleet?
In the total fleet for
solid waste?
For solid waste.
There's about 10 trucks, full-size trucks, used in both recycling and trash. So these would be trucks dedicated just to trash.
So basically, one with the automated arm, and then the 9 on a regular laddered schedule for replacement.
Yeah, there's actually a few other type trucks. There's a small packer that we have. There's what we call a grappler truck, which we work for large items. So there's more than that. I was just kind of looking at what we use on a daily basis. Goes out the door every day.
Okay, thank you very much.
You bet.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Jones.
This didn't come out of the blue. This came from a discussion at this table a year ago where we approved the pilot of going ahead and getting a truck and seeing what it could do and how it could work. We've heard today from one of the solid waste collection drivers about how great it is, how much easier his life is, how much safer he feels. My primary thing last year, my primary thing tonight, my primary thing as long as I live is the safety of the employees. And the environment they're working in right now is just plain unsafe, and we can fix it. We can fix it pretty easily by approving this request. We've got guys not belted, standing, operating a heavy vehicle, and that's a need, and that's how it has to work for this to work. But you develop some bad habits in there too, and you see this frequently. I see it a lot, where they pull up to the stop, they pull the air brake, they step out of the truck. The truck is still rolling to a stop gently. It's probably going to stop, and everything's probably going to be fine because it did the last 100 times. I've driven fire trucks to calls where the brakes get so hot that when you pull that parking brake, they won't hold. That's why we always put wheel chocks in fire trucks when we get to the scene, so that when you look over your shoulder, the fire truck's still there. But basically, these vehicles are traveling fairly routinely 10 to 18 inches with the driver outside of the cab. If they step out on ice, they could be under that truck pretty easily. They're good, agile people, but they're in and out and in and out and in and out, and that's bad in the body. Lifting things up, as you mentioned, very, very bad for the body. I'll tell you what, I would rather wheel my big blue cart out full of stuff to the street and position it than lift up one yellow bin full of aluminum cans. It's harder on my body to do that lightweight lift than to wheel that huge cart out. It's a convenience. It makes it easier. In the 2019 full survey, where extensive public input was garnered, the direct question was asked, and you had it in your PowerPoint. Would you be open to the city changing to trash carts that can be picked up with automated trucks versus smaller trash carts that are manually collected? 80% of the people said, yeah, good idea. Do the City of Dubuque yellow bins meet your needs? 72% said no. Would you like a wheeled cart for recycling? 78% said yes. What else came out of that full study that we've been working on? Well, we finally have compost available to our citizens again in the City of Dubuque and in the other communities that are serviced by the Solid Waste Agency. We finally have a place to drop off glass. Those two things came up in that survey. Two things were worked on fairly aggressively. But we can't get past the safety. And Paul, I appreciate your passion and your knowledge in this. But a resource management system includes picking up the trash. And that's what this is about. This isn't about other components of it. This is about the safest way to get the truck down the street, to get the material into the truck, and keep the employees safe. It starts there and it ends there. Now, you had a question about things appearing in the maintenance budget, and that was asked and answered the other night by Jennifer for another department, that it was because of software that it had to be reported that way. I don't remember the exact issue.
Yeah, so I assisted with the budget this year, Assistant Public Works Director Ariel Swift. So yes, once it is recommended by the city manager, it is gone ahead and entered into the system where the line item would be charged once it's rolled over for fiscal year 2023. It has to be that way, otherwise they have way too much work after April 1st and all of this is approved to go through and enter and verify all of that information. So anything they're able to get a jump start on, they do. So that $592,000, I showed that breakout, $592 and then $70,000 was the recurring improvement package for replacement or additional carts.
Thank you. The last comment I'll make, Mr. Mayor, is that the choice to use ARPA funds for this, that wasn't, hey, look at this, we can use this money. I know it wasn't, because I know how this organization works. It was in conversation with the congressional staff members, it was in conversation with the Treasury Department, it was in conversation with the expert attorneys and financial officers of the National League of Cities, and it was presented to us expertly. It's not arbitrary, it's not capricious, and it's certainly not unethical. I get tired of those words being thrown at it and the accusations that come with some of the presentations that come our way. Nothing unethical has occurred here. In fact, a good idea has happened for the citizens of Dubuque, and I'm going to support it. And I'm going to continue to support other diversion efforts. We're not taking anything away from the other diversion efforts. We're not doing the consultant to step up our game there. We're not walking away from anything else that's important. But this is important. Taking care of the people in the trucks is number one for me. And we're not doing it right now. They're in an unsafe, untenable situation that we have to fix. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Well, thank you for all the comments. I always appreciate that we have very full discussions here lately, and I think that's extremely helpful. Can I talk about something else for a second? Because I haven't heard anything else from a budget that has 19 recommended improvement requests in it. So I picked out 3. And then I'm going to have my own comments, even though I'm hearing a majority here about automated collections. So my comments don't matter as much, but I still would like to make them. First of all, I love the term snow fighter. As a huge Star Wars fan, I absolutely love that term. So the snow fighter position is one that I'm absolutely supporting. The simulator, what a great opportunity for us. I hadn't even thought, John, of the possibility that could be used for other departments, that you could do cross-training in that way, that there's that capability for a cost that, I know it's recurring, but it's still, it seems like a very worthwhile investment to me. And then finally, the consultant, number 11 out of 17, the improvement request is going to hire a solid waste consultant to assist with the development of a path to zero waste plan for the solid waste activities. I think another great investment in what we're doing. So with that said, Paul, I want to thank you and everybody else who emailed us about this automated waste collection proposal because of the number of times that you've communicated with us about this and the number of times that we've heard from other people and all the information that we've received. I know I personally have researched this particular issue more than anything else in the budget for this entire fiscal year. So thank you for sharing all that information. I think it was extremely useful. I know it led me down a number of different pathways to try and figure out, okay, what is the best possibility here? I'm probably going to repeat a little bit of what everybody said because I think all these points are well made. But the thing here that I'm really noticing is, first of all, full disclosure, I voted against this last time that it came around. It was right when I actually looked back today because I needed to know the date. It was like our first or second virtual meeting after we locked everything up for COVID. And at the time, there was a major public discussion about this at the time. I mean, there was a lot of discussion on this particular issue the first time it came around. When it was the original proposal, it was the larger carts. When it was the original proposal, we were using taxpayer property tax dollars for this. So the proposal wasn't as good as what we're seeing today. And there's another really big difference here. 2 years later, we have more data. You shared a lot with us tonight, which I think was really helpful. We've heard a lot from community members as well. I think all these different things have changed. So I know that I've changed my opinion on this particular matter, and I do plan to say, yes, let's go forward with this. I wouldn't stand in the way of doing it at this time. And I think there's a number of reasons. You mentioned other cities. We absolutely are one of the last cities in Iowa to move in this direction. And in doing so, I looked up all these other cities to see what they're saying about it. I'm not hearing anything from these other cities about increased waste as a result. Iowa City apparently gives out a 65-gallon cart automatically to everybody. 65 gallons is what we're talking about here. Major difference than what we're proposing. And that, to me, is, the other thing, too, and this is just a shout-out to our finance department once again, and the way that we operate things here in the city of Dubuque. The level of transparency in this particular proposal, in all the documents that we've seen here, the documents you shared with us tonight, the documents that I was able to access from 2 years ago, I can't find anything like that in other cities. So it's not a knock on other cities so much as it is a praise for the way that we do things here. We're operating this well. There's been a ton of public input. We absolutely are legally and responsibly and ethically using ARPA funds for this particular use. It's the time. I totally agree. I think it's time to move forward with this. It appears that the entire council feels the same way at this time, even though I think it would be a good idea to continue to explore. Can we go smaller, if at all possible? If it's really not working for a number of people. But I also trust that you're going to do that because that's the way you operate. So with that said, any other discussion or comments? John, anything else you want to add or Ariel? All right. Well, with that said, then I think I believe that we are done with this discussion for Public Works. So thank you very much for all that you do. Yeah, thank you. And thanks for the presentation. And I see no further business on the agenda, so we are adjourned.